call this Town of Star Valley Ranch work session to order. It's 10:04 p.m. or p.m. So apologies for a little bit of a late start. Had a pretty good turnout for coffee with the mayor, so it just took a little bit to finish that up and to move on to this. So we do have all council members in attendance. Let the record also reflect that we have Town Administrator Aiken, Building Official Kazir, and Town Clerk Hurd. First item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Could I get a motion for that, please?
I motion that we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. All right, moving right along. We have quite a few things on the agenda this morning. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in first. Okay. We have on Zoom our special counsel for the Mountain States annexation. Good morning, Mr. Peterson. How are you? Hopefully you can hear us okay.
Can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. The council had asked if we could have you in a work session so that they could have an opportunity to have to talk with you about the annexation, the ongoing process. The council has received a copy of the draft annexation agreement, so I think there might be a couple of questions on that. Is there anything you wanted to say to get started, or do you want us to just start peppering you with questions?
This is a big project, but things seem to be going apace, so just give me questions and I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Okay. All right. Does anybody want to jump in? Again, you've all seen the annexation agreement. Do you have particular questions? At this point, you should have all seen the Planning Commission determination and findings document, and also the draft recommendations from the Water Board. So, Councilman Ellis, I think you might have had a couple of questions.
On your agreement, there's a line that says the annexed area does not create an area situated entirely within the new boundaries that is not annexed. There is a section there that we will then be around on three sides, the county road on the fourth. Is that going to be a problem? Do we need to get that involved?
Because that's going to be owned by the state and we do not want to take over ownership or control of that road.
No, not the road. I'm talking about the property that we will be surrounding on three sides.
State statute does not like donut holes, but it's, okay, the way the state statutes read, you can have as long as the annexation is contiguous with the town, you're okay. You can have, the only thing is we could annex in on our own without objection, something that I believe the standard is 70% surrounded by the town. We could annex that in over the objections of the landowners in a subsequent action if we want. The state hates donut holes, but I know a lot of municipalities have them. This is not that, but if the council on a further step, which is to annex that in, it's easy to do so because almost surrounded property, their ability to object is not really effective. I do not know, and you guys could probably tell me, I'm assuming the requested annexer, Bucket List LLC, does not own that piece of property?
That's correct.
Yeah, they have it sold.
It's a single owner and it's a storage unit complex.
And I'm assuming they do not, they're part of the petition.
Correct.
I'm assuming they don't want annexed in, or have they been approached?
Not been able to make contact yet.
I would recommend, if you guys want that in town, that if this annexation goes through, you do that as the next step. Again, because when they're almost surrounded like that, the number of objections that can be rendered by the landowner are pretty non-existent.
Okay.
we're not gonna be able to pull them in because they're not petitioners.
Right.
Okay. Down further in your document, under the heading construction of property infrastructure, the first three words say unless otherwise agreed. Then it goes on to landowner shall. Can we get rid of unless otherwise agreed?
Well, you can if you wish, of course. Mostly it's a question of how much ability are you going to grant modifications of this agreement down the road.
Down further under adjudication and development of West Condos well, there's a section that says, should there be a practical, regulatory, and/or legal impediment to the full development and certification of said well, landowner shall correct any said deficiency, including, if necessary, the drilling of another well. I'm okay with that because there's a third option. You cannot drill another well, and at that point, it would be annexed to the city and the impact fees would go up. Does that need to be included in that section?
Probably, yes. If you're going to, right now, if they either fix the existing well or dig another one, if you want a third option, it should be in this agreement.
Okay. Because he does have a third option, but that would have a major impact on his annexation fees. Okay. Down under the payment of fees, in the event landowner fails or refuses to pay any of the fees, charges, or costs set forth in this agreement, the town may declare the entire unpaid balance immediately due and payable and collect such fees in manner provided by law, or may pursue any other means as may be available to the town. Can that be specified a little clearer?
Well, if you would like, if you have a suggestion about what you would like it to say, that's fairly standard language,
Yeah.
just an acceleration clause.
Yeah, I know
It
it's
says,
standard.
if you'd like, if there's some ambiguity you would like me to clear up, I'd be happy to do so.
Okay. Okay, the town also says further down in that same section, if the landowner fails or refuses to pay any of the fees, charges, or costs set forth therein, the town will not be obligated to accept the improvements completed pursuant to this agreement. Okay, if we do not accept the improvements at that point, what recourse does the town have? Can that be specified in the contract?
The remedies are, it depends on what they fail to pay for and what improvements the town does not accept. For example, the most common examples are, sewer or water lines. We already addressed the new well, but sewer or water lines, then they would be at the landowner's requirements to maintain and repair those. They'd have to get the DEQ certification. If we don't, for example, accept the roads, that the roads aren't done, we would require them or make them, the landowners come up with a private road agreement. Generally what happens is the landowners then turn around and sue the developer, as a general rule. But if you don't accept water and sewer lines, it has to go into a private agreement with the users of those water and sewer lines. If you don't accept roads, there needs to be a petition to change into a private road. We could also, there will be a warranty and a bond, and we can go and fix those roads up and redeem those bonds as well.
Okay.
Or the sewer lines and water lines. The well's the big problem.
Yeah, now, in terms of the roads and the infrastructure, it's been proposed by our planning commission that they be installed and in place prior to the sale of any land or the development of any piece of the property. Can that be included in the contract?
We can say that all infrastructure must be accepted by the town as is, with all proper warranties before any final plat is recorded and property can be sold to a third party.
Okay. Down farther, under section 12F, small letter II, under roads, it says maintain and police. We better get rid of the word police because the town has no police department.
Yeah, but usually sure, we can take that out. Normally it's, we maintain, and police also includes things like, all the roads and things like that, but let's take that out.
Okay? Under 16, under assignment, it says the landowner may assign this agreement or any rights or obligations herein to any successor. Can we get rid of the word may? Because I would like, if the landowner transfers the property, I would like this agreement to be transferred as well in its entirety.
Where is that again? Sorry,
It's number 16, assignment.
Yeah, so the landowner shall.
Yep.
we don't want them, so shall consent in writing?
The shall transfer all conditions and obligations to any successor.
It's what I have. Am I misreading?
It says may assign.
Oh, yeah, we don't, if the landowner doesn't want to make somebody else responsible for doing these things, are we gonna require him to?
I would like to, since it's being annexed to the city.
So the concern, I think, Thane, is we would want to ensure that any agreement that the town would have with the developer, if this annexation goes forward, would transfer to any subsequent owner. And that there's not a loophole there that a subsequent owner could get out of. So that's-
Yeah, I mean, the primary concern there is, let's say you're at phase 2 or 3 down the road, because it's contemplated some of that as well. And the developer, landowner sells that to another developer. This says that they are required to take on all the same terms and conditions of this agreement. They can't, oh, we're a new person, you don't have to follow the rules.
Yeah,
We're not requiring the landowner to assign this to somebody else.
but it says may assign.
If he sells it.
Yeah, if we say they shall, that means the landowner has to sell this property or sell the work to somebody else. We can change it to say that landowner may assign this agreement or other obligations herein to any successor or assigned. I mean, there's other places in this agreement where it says, you know, the town accepts them as part of the annexation and the agreement. You're saying that,
I see what he's saying.
I guess I'm confused with what you're saying. Are you saying that
The
at some
problem-
point in time you want him to be
The problem
required?
the problem I'm having is the word may.
I think though it's and looking at it now, it's, so the town is already requiring it, but this is, it's not really the landowner that would be requiring it, it's the town.
This is if the landowner sells his rights or responsibilities to another developer
Right.
or subcontracts.
Yes.
They are the subsequent owner. Now, what we could do is say the landowner may assign this agreement with written consent of the town. So he cannot assign this to somebody else without the town's approval.
Okay,
That
This is-
probably scratch the itch.
okay, that would resolve that one. Now, if you go down to number 18, it says conflict between the terms of this agreement or town ordinances. The terms of this agreement shall prevail over any contrary provisions. Ordinances change, so how does that particular item work?
The whole idea of that is that when you annex property in, and it can be without a problem get rid of that if you'd like. But what the idea is, once the town accepts the property, the annexation with the lots, or anything else like that, you are essentially granting any variances to any non-conforming lots in town. If you want to do that on a case-by-case basis, we can change that language. But basically, you're saying that the question comes if you guys have adopted, my understanding is, the International Building Code, is that
Correct.
correct?
Yes,
Okay, and I'm assuming you adopted the IBC minus one revision, correct?
yes.
Yeah, we're 2021?
Yeah.
Okay,
So if you would accept, for example, there's a lot size that doesn't conform or a setback on a particular location, and you accept the plat map with those requirements, or you allow something that is infrastructure that does not comply with the International Building Code's structural requirements, then you're going to be accepting that as a variance. The problem comes, and getting rid of that language is not a problem. Having the ordinances rule over those and having a specific variance in a particular situation is just fine. The problem would be this: if you guys accept this agreement and accept the annexation with certain terms and conditions, and then you change the ordinance and then say, yeah, you did all of this, but now the rules have changed, they could sue us for estoppel. They could sue the town and say, hey, we invested based on your representations. However, getting rid of that language, you just need to be aware that if you pass any ordinances between the time that you accept the annexation and accept any plat maps and accept all of the infrastructure, and you change the ordinance, which makes it a violation of the town's ordinance, what's already on the ground, we could probably lose that suit because we made different representations and spent money there. But if you're asking, hey, yeah, if there is a violation of our town ordinances, we want that approved on an individual basis, that's certainly appropriate, and I would get rid of the language because of that. I felt like that was a bad word salad and everybody's sort of zoned out. I understand that. I can try again.
no, I understand that, and the way the agreement is starting to shape up is each phase would be approved by the town, so the ordinances, if they change, would be applied to that phase only, so just want to make sure that there's no way out of it coming back.
Yeah, and we can, and you'll be dealing with plat maps and subdivision applications with the subsequent sections.
Correct. Okay, I'm done.
I've got to say, it looks like with me on the screen behind you and my head and everything, it looks like the last scene of The Wizard of Oz.
The man behind the curtain, sort of. Other council members, questions for Mr. Peterson?
I have a couple. This agreement doesn't have what the planning commission added, correct?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the other thing that is missing is a bond schedule of some sort. I know it's noted in there, but is there anything in the works about what the schedule will look like? I feel like the developer and us need to be on the same page for what fees are outstanding or what bonds look like.
With a performance bond?
For having a bond for the entirety of the project, for specific phases. I know this has been brought up in
Yeah, so-
planning commission meetings, but yet to hit this table.
So is that something that we could include in this agreement also? Some sort of outline of how the bonding would work? I think that's what you're going after.
Certainly can. I mean, the only reference we have is in section
Yeah, it's like one sentence.
4B with the addition. Like we say, they have to do the bonds and warranties required by Wyoming state statute. If you want that more specified or in a higher standard than state statute, just tell me what you want and I'll write it.
We can draft up something that would outline how we would
I guess-
envision it going forward.
Do we have, like, the state statute somewhere? I mean, is that somewhere, has that been sent anywhere where I can see, like, this is X, Y, Z of, like, what we expect?
As far as
I
what's
can
in
get that
statute.
for you.
Yeah.
Okay, and just see if we do need to, if we feel like it's necessary to go above and beyond the Wyoming state statute on that. I just thought it would be outlined very black and white in this agreement of what the
And we certainly can do
bonds will
that.
be.
There's not, what's in the statute is pretty generic.
I would feel more comfortable with not generic.
Okay, yes. So I think, it sounds like then we may want to draft up a paragraph or some more specifics to send to you that hopefully we could get rolled in. That kind of better
You bet.
would outline what we would see happening going forward as a town, so. And then, the other thing Councilman Tolson mentioned, and I don't believe we've sent this to you yet, just last week, our planning commission finished their determination and findings about the annexation, and they have a pretty lengthy list of conditions. I don't know that all of them would go in the annexation agreement. Some might be more suited to individual subdivision development agreements. But I think that's what you're alluding to, is that some of those at least, or maybe more, we think ought to be in here as well. So we can send those to you as well and see how you would wicker those in.
Not a problem.
Okay. Anything else? No? Councilman Bitter, anything?
I'm assuming you want both the bid bond and the warranty bond set out.
Yes.
Councilman Merrill, did you have any particular questions? So while we have you, Mr. Peterson, so at the end of the month, and I know Town Administrator and I talked to you previously about this, the council is planning to hold the public hearing that's required by statute. And in that public hearing, we were going to make the determination that's specified in 15-1402, about health, safety, and welfare, et cetera, et cetera. We were not planning to read an annexation ordinance or anything at that point in time. So can you just kind of walk through for everybody, if the council on the 30th says, yes, we think this petition meets the statute and we want to accept it, what would the next steps be? I think you did send a really, really early draft of what an annexation ordinance could look like, but it's not anything that was really tailored to this particular case.
Right, I just sent my standard checklist as far as this is the annexation steps. So yeah, when it gets there, the ordinance itself is fairly bare bones in that it's just we accept pursuant to the terms of agreement, pursuant to this annexation agreement, the just a second, I gotta pull it up. The model for the annexation agreement, the ordinance would look similar to that, but you don't go into all the details that you do in the agreement,
Okay.
in the annexation ordinance. You can make, I would recommend you make reference to it, primarily because of the cost of publication in many cases. So as a general rule, we don't try. Of course, I don't know what your publication costs are, or whether or not you have a paper of record that you have to deal with, or what.
We don't.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we don't really. So since we don't have a newspaper that's published here in town, we have one that's in our county that a lot of times will publish public hearing notices and things in, but it's not, typically when we publish things, we do it on our website or we post it. I don't know if in this case it might be something, since it's such a big deal, that we would wanna publish, but anyway, sorry.
There are requirements that there are some publications for an annexation that don't necessarily require, that aren't normally required. So as a general rule, you have to get, where you normally don't publish like your ordinances or minutes like that because you don't have a publication of record. The requirement of the annexation statutes require that you have to publish the date of the hearing, the location map area to be annexed, and every place that's within a half mile of the new corporate limits.
Yes.
You have to send it to the newspaper, and it has to be published at least 15 days prior to that hearing.
Yes.
Now, I don't know what the Star Valley Ranch's practices are for passing ordinances where you generally have the public hearing on a new ordinance during second reading, third reading, first reading. I don't know what your practice is. But generally, that public hearing is the same one as you have for your public hearing for an ordinance in general. Do you guys normally do that at the second reading, or when do you do that?
So I can tell you that we have met the statute as far as publication of the public hearing date to include the map and all that statutory information. So we're good there. Again, for the public hearing itself, we were not intending to do a first reading of the ordinance then, just because we don't think we'll be ready for it, since it's the 14th, and on the 30th, it's 2 weeks away. And we're still working on this draft annexation agreement. We're just going to sort of punt the first reading of an annexation ordinance until our meeting in May. So it would be at our regular town council meeting in May. Again, if the council decides to go forward at the end of the month.
It does mean that you will need to have 2 public hearings, because you will need to have the public hearing associated with the annexation that's required by the annexation statute, and then you'd have to have the public hearing as required under the adopting of the ordinance
Okay.
statute. So you'd
Okay.
have to have 2 public hearings.
All right.
The public hearings are not hard, except that in this situation, you might have a lot of voices come in and you're giving them 2 chances to do so. I don't know if that's a problem for you or not, but if you have this public hearing before you start the ordinance readings, you're gonna have it twice, 2 separate
Okay.
public hearings.
That's okay. Because we've done regular meetings before where we do public hearings for things like plat amendments and whatnot within the regular meeting, so we would just do it that way, I believe. Would meet the
And that's
requirement.
fine.
Yeah, okay,
It's fine, you're just gonna need to have 2 public hearings.
gotcha. And so,
Specific public hearing at the end of the month, the statutes lay out exactly what has to be found by the council.
right,
That's in that checklist, and if you want me to go through that again, we can. But there's specific findings that the statute requires you to find. And I can go through those if you want.
yeah, do you mind just walking through that real briefly?
That the annexations for the protection of the health, safety, and welfare of the persons residing in the area and in the town. Urban development of the annexed area would constitute a natural, geographical, economical, and social part of the town. I will get you a written list of all of those. The annexed area is a logical and feasible addition to the town. The extension of basic and other services customarily available to residents of the town shall within reason be available to the annexed area. Annexed area is contiguous with or adjacent to the town. The annexed area does not create an area situated entirely within the new boundaries that is not annexed. That's the donut hole rule. But your new area would not, the other area wouldn't qualify because it is not entirely situated within the town. All procedural requirements of Wyoming statutes, Title 15, Article 4 have been accomplished. That's all your publication, notices, that sort of thing. And electrical power shall be available to the annexed area. You need to have those findings at that public hearing.
Right, okay. And then,
It's information if you want me to present that information to the council or the developer, or you just have some evidence that each of those things is true.
okay. And then, are we correct in that the annexation would not be finalized until the 3rd reading of that annexation ordinance? Is that correct?
The third reading of that annexation ordinance and the subsequent publication of that, whether that be on your website or whatever it is.
All right, other questions for Mr. Peterson? I just wanted to make sure we had a chance to go through kind of what's coming up, and then, so I think as a town council, we still have to go through, we have to provide you the recommendations from our planning commission that we want to have rolled in. We're going to provide some updated language we'd like to see with more detail on the bonding, and then anything else we happen to come up with today or over the next couple of weeks. And then we'll get that information to you so you can provide a updated draft, if that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, could you provide for me any minutes or notes from this meeting?
Yes, absolutely.
I just want to make sure I got all the mayor's questions and corrections addressed.
Okay, absolutely.
And is your public hearing scheduled for?
April 30th at, is it 5 p.m.? At 5 p.m. Anything else, council, for Mr. Peterson? I think that's it.
Okay, well, I know I get in these meetings and I start doing a lot of information dumps. So if anyone has any questions or clarifications, you know, Trevor knows how to get a hold of me, and any one of you guys can call without a problem.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time today. All right, we'll be in touch.
Hey, bye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, the next item on the agenda, we have Ken Koleski, who is the Director of Lincoln County Planning Department, and he came up today to talk to us about the community plan overlays. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Administration. So as we talked about voice and stuff, the planning office has been dealing with some significant amount of voice outreach from various communities in Lincoln County. So we thought it would be a great time to, in cooperation with the Chief of Staff, to go around and explain to the cities what type of tools we have to help us as the county more reflect what your vision of your area is, which will help streamline annexations and growths and make sure that we're all on the same page. What your overlay covers, it covers, of course, the town, and it sits roughly 2 to 3 miles outside in some places. Some towns have a lot larger. I'm not sure how, if you ever look at the map on County GIS, Opal has half the southern portion of the county. Not sure how that happened, but for your overlay, you have the standard reductions, no man camps, no truck stops. But you actually have a separate paragraph where you outline that you'd like special permitting requests for things like adult uses, automotive repair and car sales, those salvage yards, those type of things. What I'd like to do is get all of the input from the public up here, mainly up here. South isn't near as growing, so they're not as worried. And that way my office can permit and control what goes in your area just outside your boundaries. The overlays are the first thing my office reviews when we get an application to make sure that overlay doesn't prohibit those criteria. Most of our overlays, though, for the county only talk about man camps and truck stops. I've been telling, I'm meeting with the Aetna Group and the realtors up north. I told them I will accept any requests from the community and the private citizens and the cities. I will put them together for you guys, and I will bring it forward from the county, so there's no cost or anything. We anticipate trying to start that in October. It follows our land use regulations protocols, which is a public hearing in Afton, and then acceptance by our Planning and Zoning Commission, and then 60 days later we'll hear it in the Board of County Commissioners where the final ruling will be made. The Board of County Commissioners has the final say. They can line veto, they can strike anything that's recommended by anyone, same as the town council can for ordinance changes. The cool thing about the tools is it can help shape and give you more influence as a governing body on what we allow outside. For example, there's some developments coming in for Alpine. The Alpine Town Council would like me to restrict and prohibit fireworks sales, both temporary permits and small retail with fireworks. At this point in time, and I explained to the Mayor Green about that, I'm not allowed to restrict off of my LURs if it is not prohibited somewhere else. So if my LUR says it meets my guidelines, my office, as part of procedure, must approve it. Even if we understand it's probably not going to make people happy, we have to recommend approval or approve it ourselves if it's a zone development permit. The overlay would give me that additional criteria which I could deny the application because it does not meet the overlay, which is a accepted guideline in the land use regulations. Overlays can be used to protect other things as well. Years ago, there was a scenic byway 89 corridor working with YDOT, and Dane, I think, was involved. And I don't want to quote, I know Thane's mayor at the time was involved. I know the commissioners were involved. I know YDOT was involved. They put together this plan, and then something happened somewhere, and it didn't get to where I can enforce it. So I'd like to adopt those things as well. I'll be looking at those criteria from that prior accepted study to adopt and protect the scenic byway, obviously from the south end all the way to Alpine.
Yeah, there are federal requirements on what needs to be maintained for a city byway. And I was going to ask that question because it's not being followed.
Yes, I've been working with Ken Scheibel. He's the YDOT, I don't know if he's an engineer or not, but he's in charge of basically the right-of-way and things, structures, developments in the right-of-way. We've been working with him to try and get the 89 corridor cleaned up. Over the next 3 years, we'll also be, the county will be cleaning up all county roads. We're going to do a survey this summer to see how much impact that's going to happen, but there's no development allowed in county right-of-ways. So we will be removing that stuff over the next 3 years to get cleaned up and help the health, safety, welfare of both the public and my road and bridge crew and the YDOT crew as well. Thank you, Councilman.
Okay.
So on my question about, I'm looking at the map of the current Star Valley Ranch overlay, which looks like it does include the public trust land that's right over there. And it does, so it goes a bit beyond the town boundaries, right? Not a whole lot, but a little bit. And when we were asked to provide comments last summer about the overlays, we took a look at what the town previously provided in 2014, and then we kind of sent along some additional comments. And you said something a little while ago about, needing something as a county to not allow a particular use. And if it's not in the Lincoln County land use regulations, but it's in the overlay, that gives you possibly a tool to be
Yes,
able
because
to
the overlay is part of the
part
land
of the land
use
use regulations. Okay, so one of the comments that we had submitted last year was the allowed conditional use for commercial storage units within the Star Valley Ranch Community Plan overlay should be removed and placed in the not to be allowed category. I don't know how likely that is to be incorporated. It just, when you look at storage units, it seems like the town, we're getting surrounded by storage units. And just in soliciting comments from our planning commission and our residents, there's just some concern about that encroachment. So I just wanted to make sure I was understanding that if that does get incorporated into your land use regulations, then potentially new storage units wouldn't pop up within our overlay. Is that right?
That is the goal, yes.
All right.
And it would also restrict expansion.
Okay.
For example, Star Valley Ranch storage, Star Valley Storage.
Yes.
Okay, they recently got allowed external storage.
Yes.
That was granted by the Board of County Commissioners. If it was an overlay where I restricted or stopped all storage, then I would have restricted their use of that and therefore given them a violation. I did give them violation for their acts, but I would have had the stuff removed as opposed to
Right.
the CUP process.
Yeah, and I think that is just outside of our overlay. So.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Now, we can adjust, as you grow, you can also adjust those. Those overlay maps haven't been, I'm not going to state when it was last done
Yeah.
because I wasn't here. It's my understanding though that it's about a good time for us to reconnect with the municipalities and the public, the Etna, the Bedford. When I talked to the Bedford Turnerville people, I requested them to get with. They have an engineer that lives there with them that has a house there. I said he could probably. Excuse me.
It's maybe. The engineer's maybe.
Oh, yes. But I said, well, you might be able to get him to help you guys draft a proposal and put a map on because he's experienced with our GIS system and can do it. And then we can realign those as part of the overlays. If you would like to pick up more ground southwest of here, we're totally cool to accept that as part of a change, anything under the overlay, both the criteria, restrictions, and the size. I will be changing Opal's overlay. Their overlay is a little on the egregious size. 50 people get, 50 square miles. A lot of it's checkerboard though, but it's going to come, the checkerboard's going to be very important in the next 1 to 3 years as energy development in Wyoming comes. And I'm sure the chief of staff will discuss that with you guys in June. If you have any questions about that or the proposal for any of the big political things, he'll be here in June and he'll fill you guys in on that. It's out of my pay grade.
Council, have any questions for Mr. Kolesky about the overlays?
Do we still have an option to modify our town's overlay?
Yep. We've tried, so originally as a new hire director, I was really struggling with how the dichotomy between the South. It shocked me how many people in the northern Lincoln County would be proactive and engaged, and then when I do something in the South, I couldn't get. I offered sandwiches and drinks, and I only got 3 people show up. So, it's kind of hard. So, but yes, the overlays can be changed. I'm not going to restrict, and I told the public that live in the community areas as well. You don't have to have a city council submit stuff. Obviously, the city council submittal is probably a little stronger than, just a private citizen. But I will take all of them, and as long as they don't violate health, safety, welfare, I will put them in and allow the public process and acceptance to go through. I won't be restricting. I use the term orange house. If you guys don't want to allow bright orange paint, we can put that there. I don't know if the Board of County Commissioners will accept it, but I'll gladly do it because it doesn't harm anything. We don't want any orange houses. It's a tool to help you guys, help my office reduce the amount of friction and empower you guys to have more control over what is. Because I know the state statute took away a lot of the power for the cities. And this is kind of like the soft bridge. Still, obviously, the decision is still the Board of County Commissioners. They can still choose to modify and accept things that are prohibited in the overlays.
Right.
They can also choose to modify and accept things outside my LURs. They are the ultimate decision makers. They don't need any other support.
Just because I don't know a lot about this and you're here. So the state trust land, that large parcel over there, it's been talked about by previous councils here before on, is there anything that can be done with that, for instance, and how one goes about doing that? And then I'm thinking about stuff like pathways or, being able to cross-country ski there in the wintertime or people to walk their dogs in there. Do you have any insight onto anything the town can do to possibly
So I am
involved in
not
that?
the best contact for that. We have a SS4A trails, OTV, hiking, snowmobile committee that's doing a whole study. That's being ran by Mary Crosby and our county engineer, Amy Butler. They would have better data on how to get involved in producing requests for that study.
Okay.
And the chief of staff will be able to tell you where he's at with his work with forestry, BLM, grant access, protecting multi-use in the forests, and the challenges that him and the commission have been undergoing this winter, spring, to continue to open our Bridger Teton to multi-use. That's one of the things that Lincoln County's been working on. There has been a little bit of feedback with Game and Fish, but we're working to keep it open and allow multi-use, which is the lumber, trade, hiking, snowmobiles. I know the Bedford, Turnerville people are going to try and change theirs too. At the river parks a little farther out from you guys, but
Right.
they're working on getting some changes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, but again, that's been talked about before, but we just haven't, with all the other things going on, it hasn't been something that we've leaned forward too far on, so.
Trails are extremely important. It helps enrich the community and, lets us all enjoy both for visitors and for economic development. So we absolutely support trails. Still working on getting in subdivisions. I'm working on it. I've got little segments. It's coming. So.
Any other questions for Mr. Kowalski? Well, again, thank you very much for
Thank you
coming.
for
It was
having
a
me.
long drive for a short stint, but we do appreciate it. And it's always nice to put a face with a name for anyone that might not have met Ken before.
I appreciate it.
You're still up here on, Monday and Tuesday in Afton?
I've actually switched now. I'm usually here either Monday or Fridays. My senior planner's here Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Oh.
So to help with the development, answer questions and concerns.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, the next next item on the agenda, we have the administrator's update, and we have a couple of items there, so Trevor.
Trying to go through a few of the highlights we have going on right now, but all of our large flow meters have been installed. And the problem with a couple of them, it actually ended up being a motherboard, but Scott was able to replace those and they all seem to be functional now. We've got a little bit of tweaking to do. And we do have one overflow that's not quite reading right yet, but by the end of the week, we're hoping to have those all up and running and on track. So we've started our residential water meter installation as well. We have roughly around 50 installed so far. So it's going all right. We're still working on the software for the billing, and we should get an answer on how well that's going to work here in the next week or so. Our PFAS testing will be conducted on the 28th of April. So I didn't even realize this was a grant, but I filled out all the paperwork. It was a grant that we got, and they're going to come in and do the initial couple rounds of testing for us. You have a question?
Just a comment on the PFAS. Texas Tech University published in the Science Directory in December 2025, they've come up with a 3-stage plat that will eliminate PFAS in an environmentally pleasant way. I've got the document if you want to see it.
Would love to see it. So I'm trying to read a lot, listen to a lot of podcasts, of a lot of building legislation and building litigation on PFAS. So I have no idea where this stuff's going to land.
This is brand new.
This would be awesome. So I'd love to see that at some point. And I've been talking to Silver Star about the project, and they let me know a couple days ago, I think it was on Thursday or Friday, but they're not going to be able to start their project for this year until the 4th of May. They still have Crown. If you've seen them fixing some things on the northern end, we gave Silver Star a list of the crossings where they trenched across the road we were very unhappy with, and Silver Star's had Crown come back in and they're fixing those. After the first round, we still had some that I will get back to Silver Star and tell them that these need to be fixed better, but we're working through that. And this year's project is everything from Vista south. It will start May 4th, and I talked to the guy that owns CMC Concepts, Corey, what's his last name? Christensen. He's a local contractor. He was a contract to do this year's fiber project, and he's very professional. I think we're going to be much happier with him because he puts his name to his work. And we had a good conversation on Saturday, so I think that we'll be happier this year with how this project goes. So, in personnel issues, we extended an offer last night to lady for the billing clerk job, and I don't want to give her name or anything yet because I still need to make notifications to the other applicants. We had about 8 applicants, and after interviews, we did make a job offer we think the town will be very happy with. We also had an employee at Public Works give notice last Thursday, and we've already conducted some interviews. And we had someone start today at Public Works that lives here in town. So we shouldn't see any gap in service or anything there. And we've had several questions about the road rehab and dust. So, Mr. Edwards, if you can come up here. I asked Zach to come in and just kind of answer some questions there on what we're doing with the roads and what we're doing there. So, do you have any questions about anything I've said so far?
Well, I have one regarding the meters.
Yeah.
So when will we be able to do a comparison of, here's the inflow, right, and here is what we're consuming on the other end?
So comparison to old data or
Well,
just
again,
in and out?
with the new meters, we'll have a very good accurate reading of what's coming in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The question is how much are we losing, between there and what we're billing? Bottom line. So we want to find out that number.
Yeah. We'll need roughly a month of data, I would say,
Okay.
once they get up and running. So
Maybe by the end of May.
End of May.
Reporting?
Yeah.
Because that would be very important for us to understand that.
Sure.
Okay.
Morning, Mayor, Council. Zach, Public Works Director. I said, did the council get all the substrate? Did you get everything out to everybody?
I can't remember.
Anyway, I got enough for you all. I'm old school, I'm paperwork, so.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're gonna send over it, but you know what it is.
Don't worry about it.
Oh. And just as we go here, just gonna just pass this around. This is part of the rehab stuff. I'll fix to talk about the fabric. So the past couple of weeks, we've got over 140 some loads of road base that has been brought in. We utilized our equipment and some contractors to get some road base in so we can start rehabbing some of the roads. As Trevor said, we started here at Vista, we did both Vistas, Vista East and Vista West, putting some rock down where we need to put rock. Just over the winter, it gets pushed off. And we got up north, we run our roller, motor grader, and like I said, our dump trucks. We run into some few places that we got to get Silverstar to come back. So we kind of held up in places because no sense of putting rock down that's going to get ripped back up on their rehab, on their fixing of their crossings. We was moving along pretty good on it until weather come back in, and there's no sense of being up dealing with me, having to do anything with the wet ground and all that because it's going to be a muddy mess. But we've got it started. That's the biggest thing. And get, because we got to get started so we can work the plan that me and Trevor has worked out for the road stuff. The little thing that went around with the fabric, where the potholes is at, I don't know why it's not been utilized here before, but that fabric, we'll dig down 8 to 10 inches, we'll roll the fabric out and put it down, and then we'll fill back in with road base and compact it to 100 pounds per square inch. And that would keep, what happens with the potholes is there's moisture in the ground, and there's moisture sits on the ground because the roads are flat. We got to be able to crown the road so the water will run off, and that'll keep any moisture from coming up and going down. We're creating the potholes. There's several places that we done and got that at Public Works. I've got over 2,500 feet of it. What we ordered here was that they're 17.5 feet wide, 100 foot long. We'll roll them out, and then we'll overlap them 3 to 4 feet in the center. And then, like I said, after we excavate all the rock and everything out and put it in. As Trevor said, right now we're installing the residential meters. They're getting it down. They was doing, we're probably going to wind up doing 40 or more today with the full crew going on it. But the biggest thing, and hearing a lot about it, is the little thing I just hand to you is what I call MAG water, liquid MAG. That's been used here for multiple years, and it's not working. It's just, not only is it not working on the roads, is when we put it out 2 or 3 days in the summertime, they're hollering for more. You know, and it's honestly, it's costing us every time my truck goes out, our 2,000 gallon truck, it's about $2,000 for one truck to go out. And if we run a 3,500 gallon truck, that's 35. So when both trucks run out, you're about $5,500, and it don't last. Because what they require, I know NZ got this, but I'm gonna read you just a little bit here, because I researched it. 2,000 gallon of water. To do it, what they ask, what they say to do is 2,000 gallon of water will only cover to do 1 inch thickness. They want it to soak 1 inch for dust mitigation. We wouldn't be able to do the 3,200 square feet on a 2,000 gallon truck. That wouldn't do us, you know, maybe a half a mile. And there's different ways. I mean, you can do a light spray at a certain speed, and we know. I mean, like I said, we try to get a mile per tank on a truck, but that's not putting enough down. And the liquid MAG pulls the moisture out of the air. Well, we're dry humidity, so there's not none there. That's in all the paperwork and stuff. So I was researching a different product. What could we do that would help us, and it would be financial benefit to the town, but mostly the benefit to the residents on the dust mitigation. So I found it's magnesium chloride flakes. We don't have to have another piece of equipment. We can use our small dump truck that we already own. We can use the sander that's on the back of it. The stuff comes in 2,000-pound totes, so we don't have to have a tank to keep it in, and it ain't eating the tank out that we have to repair the tank. And we don't have to keep putting money in our old water truck. We done spent about $6,000 in that thing this year just to keep it going. You know, it's at the end of its life. So with this flakes, we go in, we set the road up the way we need, set it up on the crown, then we wet the road with our water truck, our 3,500 gallon water truck. Then our dump truck will come in and spread this with our sander that we use during the winter, and he'll put it down. And with this product here, 2,000 pound tote, we can do over a mile. So let's just say I got a quote for what it would cost. If we do 20 totes, that'll do over 17 mile with some places that's more higher traffic. We can double up on that. And it's cheaper to do that route than it is using the mag water, because we can store it inside, and like I said, the mag don't sit up there through the winter. It starts separating, and then when we go clean the tank out, there's 6 feet of this white salt in the bottom of it. That's with rust flakes big as these tables, you know. So that's part of the dust mitigation that we're looking at. I know I brought this to the roads board, and they was very interested in it.
Let me, since you brought up the roads board, let me jump in at this point. Went to the roads board. There were 2 products that were evaluated, something called BioBlend and the substrate which you have. BioBlend, both are environmentally friendly and able to get on the road within the road easement. BioBlend was extremely expensive, so it was eliminated at that point. And the roads board made the recommendation at that point to continue the use of magnesium chloride on town roads with a test run of the dry magnesium chloride application once the water-based is used up. So that's a recommendation from the roads board at this point. Sorry.
Yes, no, you're fine. And like I said, the BioBlend was good, but it was just outrageous how much it is, you know. And the way it come in, it was still, we would have to do tankers and all that, and it was over $3,000 for this very minimal of what we was going to get. The flakes, I got the picture here. I mean, what the flakes look like I said, after we water the road, it is kind of white with the flakes. It's not a powder, so of course I researched that, which, you know, you don't put it down on windy days, different stuff like that. But the biggest save for the town is we can control our spray with our sanders, because our sanders we can set up from 0 to 10, so we can cover the whole 24 or 26 foot roads, where with our water trucks, our overspray, that's going on property, you know, on resident property, flower beds, you know, stuff like that. And that's been the biggest thing, and then that's a waste, because it's not getting where it needs to be, you know. So, and what's going to be unique with this, I watched a video about it, is once it's laid down, the flakes, you hear a cracking sound, which that knows it's activated. Then if we do have to put it back on high traffic areas, when it rains, we don't have to run, so we can save the fuel and an hourly wage of one of the operators. If it rains, all we got to do is just have our truck out redoing it. You know, where mag, if it rains hard, it washes the mag water off. With this, it's there and it soaks in, excuse me, on the spot. So that's what Public Works is doing. We got a lot going on. We've got all the equipment, service ready to go. Once we get the weather and we get the ground up where it needs to be temperature wise, we'll start the chip sealing process, finishing the projects we have. And we got a couple more that we're gonna look at the end, that we're gonna do, that we can chip seal. There'll be money in the budget that we're in now for that. And it's gonna be a busy, with everything, it's gonna be a busy year, but we're up to the task. So, yeah, that's my update.
Any questions for Mr. Edwards?
I have a question. So it will save time to actually have the flakes, the dry magnesium on the paint then? It will
Yeah.
save you guys quite a bit of time with if it rains, then you can use that water basically.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's, I'm glad you brought that up. So let's just say we're out and we're putting magnesium flakes down, so we know that we're headed north. So we will load the trailer up and we'll go ahead and take 4 or 5 bags up north. So that truck ain't having to turn around and come all the way back. We can have a loader there, we dump it in the dump truck, and he just keeps it going. You know, we don't have to have the running back and forwards.
And you don't have to roll it in or anything? You
Nope.
Just
Nope,
spread it
after
out.
you set the road up with the road base, set it up where you want it, get the crown on it, and we don't have to, it's already rolled, it's already set, and it soaks in that way. Yeah.
Actually rolling instead of picking up the flakes.
Yeah, I, during the roads board, I'm not gonna do it here, but I did a little science experiment. I went and got a cup just full of our road base that we have. The road base we have here's got a lot of clay in it. And that's the thing, we gotta have something that binds to that clay to help, because clay is dust. But clay, again, like I said, binds the material. So if we can get everything that works together on that, we're good. And the biggest thing, this ain't gonna be we put it on the mag, the liquid mag, the way we need to do, it's just gonna run off in the ditches, you know, off the side of the roads.
So I'd like to make the recommendation from the roads board that we go ahead and tell Zach to pick some of this up, start trying it.
Well, let us finish our questions first and then we may proceed.
Okay?
I was wondering too, when it goes down, it's you know how the mag that we've been putting down, it kind of comes up on the vehicles and stuff. Does this tend to go down a lot drier, so it won't
Yeah,
come up as much?
this dry, it'll soak in a lot quicker, and that's something else too. Like I said, the residual, I guess, that's the word it is. Sorry, I can't pronounce some of those words. That's been the biggest problem, and that's what, with our equipment, it gets under the bottom of it, it rusts everything out, and it shortens our equipment time. The old water truck, like I just mentioned, that was the thing, we had to put all new brakes, it had rusted all the brakes, the power lines, everything out with the liquid stuff. This, once it goes down, they say turn the traffic on it, because that's what beats it down. You know, because it's just flakes, it's powder. You're not going to have the stickiness like that until it gets set in, you know. And then it don't require the moisture from the air. It requires the moisture that's around, you know, for the powder and for the flakes. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions for Scott?
Do you know anybody that uses this?
Bonneville, our neighbors right over the hill right there, they just went through, last year they did 277 miles of it. And I was reading their reports, and they're leaving the liquid. They're going to straight powder, yeah. But they have bigger operations to put it down than we do, you know. But they did 277 miles. They compared it, if they did the liquid, I can't remember what it was. It was $4 or $6 million they spent on the liquid, and then they did the flakes, and it was cheaper to run the flakes. You know, so that's the closest I could find was Bonneville County, you know, right over here. Yeah.
Sounds promising, so.
That was all reviewed by the water board.
Yeah.
So. Not the water board, the roads board. I'm still playing in last year.
Easy,
Sorry.
man, easy.
Well, yeah, so sure we'll get updates from you and Trevor, and once you actually get a chance to start putting that down and see how it's going.
Yeah. if we proceed that way, it can be here in 7 days, shipping. It comes in on tractor trailer.
Do we
So,
have much of the mag water left in that tank?
I've got maybe 3 or 4 loads, truckloads, and I talked to Trevor, and I like to do I'd like to do a test on one area. I know where I want to do it at.
Okay.
Is put the liquid water, the liquid mag down, and then roll some of this, because it's old, regrind. I tell you, it's on Vista East and Vista West, top of the hill. That's because it's this old regrind there, gravel won't stay there. So I would like to do a little short, couple 100-yard test right there on it to do that. But we would get the old liquid mag out, you know, in places, we got to get it out because it's just destroying town property right now. So.
And just, go ahead. In just glancing at kind of the cons of this stuff, I think, especially with pretty healthy people here, corrosion to vehicles and environmental damage probably needs to be a pretty big education piece for our community.
Yeah.
Because
Yep, we talked about doing something on the newsletter or something that, hey, we're going to do. I got some signs I'm going to order of dust mitigation, as being, as road signs, just, temporary signs when we're going through, because we've had them, I've watched it, I drove the truck, you'll have residents pull right up behind the water truck and it's putting out mag. It's all over the vehicle, So, yeah, this is, like I said, things are changing. I know Trevor just mentioned the PFAS. That's another ordeal. That's going to come in effect down the road. But it's all EPA and all that. I mean, I tried to do everything was EPA approved and all that. But at the end of the day, it's all salt. I mean, this stuff, the powder was used in several, it's wintertime. They put it down in the winter because it melts the snow. But I mean, that sounds good here, but we have to run chains, so that wouldn't help us here. We have to have a snow cap, But some of the big cities and stuff do it, like I said, for winter. New York, one of the towns, New York, wherever that is up there, they did it. They put out 100,000 ton of it, and they said it worked real good, but they remove all their snow every day. So they was trying to make it where it would slush out instead of moving ice pack. So,
Sorry, I did have some questions about the is it a geomat or
Yeah.
plan that
Yeah.
we're putting in? So you said we have about 2,500 square feet of it right now?
Yeah.
So what is the plan in actually putting it down? Like where and how do you guys?
well, let's just say, up at Vista, Vista East or Vista West, we can go right up here where Sugarloaf is, where it's the back. We'll go in, we'll dig that down 8 to 10 inches, dig it out, all the rock, dig completely out, roll this fabric down, and then we'll fill it back in with road base, and then compact it then, to 100 pound per square inch. And then that will, like I said, that will let the moisture back up through the ground, and the moisture that hits on top won't be able to soak in, it'll run off to the sides. So yeah, I've used it a lot. When I was talking to Trevor about it, we did a big 4-lane job in Mississippi, and it's a 4-lane highway now. We went through the swamps with it. We'd go up every 5 feet and put this layer in, and that's what it's made for. There's all different kinds of it. There's a geo grid that you put like on steep hills, and it's like an inch. It just got its grid pattern. It's an inch high. Where you can put your rock in, it'll hold the rock, like on the hills and stuff, for gravel. And it's good for like when they start to do concrete, not concrete, but asphalt work to help hold your subgrading.
So it lasts a long time?
I think it's a 50-year fabric.
Okay.
Yep. It'll be here way longer after I'm gone. So, yeah.
And then how have we decided where we're gonna put it, and how much are we putting down this?
Well, of course, this winter, you got to think, it was pretty bad on potholes the way the winter hurt us too. But like I said, the major intersections is where it needs to be. As this winter I was out, I've got a list of the different places, the pothole areas that was real bad. And that's just, there's no sense to put it in a place that I guess you're saying is don't create a problem. Don't dig up ground where it's holding up, it's doing good, there's no potholes, and there's no sense of putting it in one spot. You know, I mean, this is made for big areas. So like up here at Vista, we'll go from Vista Drive all the way to Green Canyon intersection. So that whole area is bad. And like I said, up there's different all over the range, you know, and a lot of it was with the roads boards, it's a priority roads, the bus route roads.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to me, every road's priority, but then you got to prioritize your prioritized roads. So that's where I'm at now.
So can the council get a list of which roads are prioritized
Yeah.
this summer?
Yeah.
I think it would help, excuse me, more
Can I get a clarification just for a minute? You said priority roads for this summer or the priority roads total?
for this summer.
Okay.
So that we can explain to citizens as they like come and ask us. And then if they have a road that they're concerned about, then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah.
I was wondering, so Vista they had chip seal put down twice or once last summer.
Once.
Okay. So we'll plan on doing it twice.
Yep, got 2 more layers, yes.
So in what we did, what would be your thoughts on like where it is right now compared to like where we want it to be with the chip seal? Because I know even after one, it doesn't necessarily look like it held up as well as I was hoping after one chip seal. So
Well, you got to
What are your
think,
thoughts?
one layer of chip seal is a half inch. That's it. You know, that's the chip, that's a rock. And a lot of the potholes you see now was the valves in the ground. I mean, so you're not going to be able to compact on top of a valve, so it's going to come up.
from like a water line.
Yeah, water line valve, yes, the shut-off valves. And we have a tack trailer. It's a 300-gallon tack trailer. What we'll do is we'll put the tack in the trailer. It's got its own, we do the propane heat, and we'll pull that trailer out before we start putting chips down. And when it comes to the problem areas, is it'll spray a layer of tar out. Then we'll put chips. If it's a pothole, we'll build it up all the way to the level where we need to be before we can start. And then every layer we do, we compact it.
Okay.
You know, so it'll build up to level. Then when we come with the next run, then there'll be no dips or nothing like that. And that'll go to, while we're putting chips here, it'll be down at Plat 21, fixing that area. And that's another thing too, when you got these, when we're putting it down, if a dump truck or a residential vehicle drives through that tar, the rock ain't gonna stick. And we know, and I know this, I talked about it when we started. We started pretty late in the season last year. It did better than what I thought. You know, and then this year's winter, trying to plow everything with pickup trucks, pickups is rough on it because of the freeze and thaw. If we ever got the 100% frozen ground, then it wouldn't be no issue. We had some excess rock it was put on, but honestly, what that helped, that was a buffer, that was a protection. You know, we'll come up, clean the sides of the roads when we get started with everything. There's no sense of cleaning up now and then clean up again, then clean up again.
Sure.
Because we'll still run our brooms through after we get everything, you know.
So the protection that was put down was to protect the tar or the chip seal that was already there?
It was a chip seal was all I did, because we put this little extra rock on it,
Yeah.
you know. I know every penny counts, but as good as deals we got in those chips, and thing about the chips that's on the side of the road, we can pick them up, and then next winter, we'll put them with our road sand, as we did this year. So technically, they was used for 2 things, you know, protection of the road, and then, like I said, it helped this past winter, instead of just running concrete sand, that we had half-inch chips in the hills. It did more traction. So, you know, so it like I said, multiple uses, you know.
So that's good to know, because I know that some of the residents were concerned about the dust that was coming out from all the extra rock, but it was purposely put there for
Yes.
protection.
Yep.
And then I did notice in some areas it does look like the water did kind of dig into the road a little more. Is that just because we only have the one lane on it?
Yeah, that's it, yeah. And again, we was running out of time when we all got this when we all got it all brought together. And again, I mean, 50-degree weather or better, 55 on the ground is, you know, that or better is good. But like I said, we still have some cool nights, and that's the thing, it has to set up, you know. And we can roll it and roll it and roll it, but if the tack is still soft, it's still gonna come. I mean, we didn't have nothing to pick up on the tires, but you still gonna have moisture, you
Sure.
know, so, yeah.
As far as the rock that's on there, and you were saying like brooming it, so is that something that is done like normally after all the chip seal is put down?
Well, usually they do a layer, and then you'll broom off your access,
Okay.
you know. For like a lot of our roads, we got some, what they call maintenance layers that come in just, you know, because roads crack, I mean, asphalt cracks, and just what you call crocodiling, you know, just the multiple cracks. And you just broom the excess off. It usually ain't that much when you do a maintenance layer, but as we did this one, like I said, the machine that we got last, the chip spreader, I mean, it's more computerized. It'll tell you you're putting too much or putting too little, you know. Where when we first started, it was my eye and the back of a dump truck, you know. So we was trying to do the best we could to get going.
Yeah.
Because if we'd have waited any longer, we wouldn't have made it,
Sure.
you know. So, yeah, and we got, like I said, all the bugs worked out. Because I've been around it, some of the other guys with Public Works been around it, but most of them ain't. They've seen it, they drive on it. I mean, there's 4-lane highways made out of it. But we had to bring a few up, you know, up to speed on what we was doing, you know. And we've watched a lot of videos over the winter when we could, and about chip sealing out, you know, applying this, that, and the other, and getting our, the biggest thing is the temperatures. You've got to keep that truck where it needs to be. You get it too hot, then it boils. If you get it too cold, it's too thick, you know. And if you get it too thick and you don't put enough rock, and then by the time you get done, your tire's like 6 sizes bigger than what it's supposed to be. So you got to get everything just right, you know. But we're anxious about it. We're ready to go. You know, we want to get what we can done so we can move on. You know.
And as far as the pathway on Vista, are they still planning on putting chip seal down out that far, or are they just clearing it there?
Yeah, we're 35 feet going up Vista, so that's counting your bike path. Yes, you know.
And are you not staking them when you're or doing the chip seal? Like, how do you know how far out you're?
We're doing the whole 35 feet, then after we get done, we'll do our line.
Okay.
Then that'll designate that area, you know.
But I mean, on the other roads, to not stake them, how do you know how?
We do, a lot of places we don't, well, I go out before and just do I pull the 24-foot or whatever we're gonna do right there, is I look at the road, like the gravel, where the gravel is, and just kind of stay within a 24. You know, you don't want to do it like off in a, you know, where it's washed out or gullied, you know, so and I try to keep everything utilized, you know. Doing all of the mapping, you know, from the roads of the ranch and just seeing, and then talking to him too about some places, because some places we got this right away, some places we don't have that much. So trying to stay in that, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for?
Completely different subject, kind of, except it's roads. I'm a golfer.
Yeah.
Can we please, this is another public request, to get a speed bumps on the number 9 hole going through there. People are hauling through there. We are super lucky that a car and nobody has been hurt that I know of. Even if they're temporary, so that the winter conditions, but
Yep.
the signs are not doing it for getting people to slow down on the golf course.
No, that's just a suggestion. That's all it is, you know. So, yeah, I have a lot of requests for them. I mean, I can't put them in every driveway, but that's where the people want them, the residents. But we'll do what we, you know, yeah. But they are, like I said, that's some places, North Forest is one. That's a drag strip, you know. And that's the only thing about making the roads look good and packing them hard is the speed limit goes up. You know, the speeders do, so, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for this time.
For the council, to follow on to what Councilman Wilson said, there's a 2-page paper that Alyssa Mason, our Natural Resources Coordinator, also drafted about some of the not so great things about liquid mag. So, and we will include some information in a newsletter and try and get more information to the public. You know, It's been done like this for a long time. I'm not sure people know exactly what the impacts can be, so. Okay, moving on. Mr. Welling is here. And I know, Trevor, he was invited to give an update on the water system. Was there something in particular from the last work session, or?
Yeah, the last
water
work
board?
session, there were just questions, and they
Okay.
wanted in here to answer questions, so.
Can I start? Okay, so Ryan, thank you for coming. The biggest question that keeps coming up from the water board to basically fund financial reserves for, years to come is a replacement tank. What is your best estimate on when a replacement tank needs to be installed? What year does that look like?
So our oldest tank, which I'm gonna call our first replacement tank, is going to be Prater Small Tank.
Okay,
To give an estimate, let's say 2032.
okay.
5 years.
And so it really depends upon how big of a replacement tank we would put in
Yeah.
to replace that. But I'm, in looking at the future, that's our largest single capital item that we're gonna have over the course of the next, basically, 6-7 years, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm just wanting to make sure that that fits in with what they're proposing for fees
Yeah.
and how we would pay for it.
Yep.
Because we're gonna see a significant drop-off in our debt,
At 2030, I think is what.
2030, 2032. So this is perfect timing with just replacing the debt that drops off and getting new debt for it, instead of charging everybody and creating a reserve that we don't need to. So, okay, appreciate that one. The second one is regarding the annexation. The biggest question or concern that comes up with anybody I talk to is water.
Yeah.
Water capacity. Do we have enough water to not only satisfy the build-out of the lots remaining on the ranch, and plus then adding in new requirements for the annexation?
No.
So how do you, so can you elaborate?
So the system was designed, when was it? Was that 2012? Well, 2024. But the original master plan and the original design of the town and the development of the resources were to develop the water source and storage for the build-out of the town at that point.
Yes. Okay.
So that means every lot has a meter collecting water. When we add annexation in, that's where we come up with that impact fee. And that pays for additional sources or additional storage that we need above what we have. So when you look at population projections, what the tricky thing about that is we could annex this in. Do we want to put in a new tank right now for that? We don't need to, because there's a threshold. Right now, we're sitting below that threshold of capacity.
Okay.
Even as lots continue to be built there, there's still lots that are empty here. And so there's that threshold when we hit, was it 2040 lots, 2,040 lots, where we hit that threshold of where we need to be looking at new source, or we need to be looking at, and we need to be looking at additional storage. We don't want to put in a tank right now for something that might not happen until 30 years from now. And so that's where we collect these impact fees, and we hold those until we need to we need to upsize our tanks, or we need to develop additional sources for the whole town, and use those impact fees on the annexation, pay for that portion that they'd be accountable for the whole town.
Okay. So that's really the answer, is you say the impact fees are in place or will be in place to support the growth of additional infrastructure to support the water needs of the annexation.
Yep.
While the existing system, again, in 10, 15 years, a lot of lots will never be built out in
Right.
our lifetime. We know that, okay? We don't know of the 750 or whatever lots we have remaining that are unbuilt. We might get down to 200 and something, you know, over the next 20 years, but we'll never build it all the way out. That though would be something we'll have to visit at some point in time, but it may not be until 2040 or beyond. Okay.
Clarification on this one. If the annexation takes place and the developer decides to, option one, get the easement to use the existing well and develop it, that's one impact fee. If the developer decides to cap that one and drill a second well, that would be a different impact fee.
So the impact fee, so let's take just this state property out there. They have no well. If we annex them in, they would have an impact fee for source and supply. That's what the impact
Right.
fee is. If this annexation comes in and has a well that meets that demand that's required, that's, I can't remember what was 200 gallons per minute. That 205. That would cut off that impact from the for the source.
Right.
We would still collect the storage impact
Yeah.
fee. So-
And so then if he decides not to do either well, then the impact fee is gonna go up because the storage is gonna have to be,
So it would be the storage impact fee.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have any change in storage because of our system and how it's set up and the deep limits we're at. We'd have wouldn't have any change in the requirements, but we still need to collect that
storage for the new.
And then we'd also, if they didn't have a well, we would collect the source impact.
But the bottom line is, depending upon what the developer decides to do, if we annex, there's gonna be different
Yeah.
potential impact fees. Okay?
Were you given the draft of what the water board recommended
Probably, yeah.
with all of the fees?
Mhm.
And do you agree with the impact fees that are put in that recommendation?
Yep. Partially. So there's the impact fee that I came up with. There's the other impact fees. I mentioned to the mayor, I had some concerns about, maybe not the impact fee as it's stated, but the implementation of it. As far as the paying for the existing assets. If we're doing that, do we give them a credit for the new assets that they're adding to the town with water lines? Because that, once they do that, it then adds assets to the books of the town. And then if we do have another annexation, who do they pay for those assets? Is it now the towns? So should we charge them for our assets? If it's just a convoluted mess, I think, if we have any other future annexations of who's paying who on those assets. And then I have an issue still with trying to charge with the, what is it? 120 lots up front. We don't know what that's going to be. If it's 100 lots at the end of it, is the town responsible for paying that back, those 20 lots? Do we hold that fee out? If it's over that, what is our recourse for going after more money for that extra, if it's 150 for those 30 lots? I think it's just not to say that anything's good or bad, it's
just options.
just what's going to happen? Like what, not that we shouldn't, but what is the town's actions on that? What does the town need to hold back? What does the town need to put into place in their ordinances or whatever to recapture things if they go over a certain amount of lots?
Yeah. Well, we could always set up an escrow account, you know, we can put the money in and just pay. If it doesn't happen, not 120, but it's 100, that could be agreed to in writing.
That's most of the questions there.
On Green Canyon tank, even though it was lined recently, when is that one possibly up to be replaced as well?
With that lining, what was it, Zach? Was it
Second.
I think
It's
it was a
guaranteed.
10-year warranty on that.
Yes, 10-year warranty, but it looks like it should go more like 40.
Yeah, so assuming we have no structural deficiencies that pop up,
Pray for no
knock on wood,
earthquake.
there's no wood in here.
Oh, that's right.
Hopefully not for the foreseeable future, and I'll be retired, so. On that note, any more questions? I don't know.
I had a couple more. Do you recall when Sunrise Mountain Estates was annexed, and I know that's only 9 lots, did they pay any impact fees? Were there any water, you've got to pay for infrastructure that everybody else paid for the 10 years that you weren't in the town?
Nope.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
And I know that's a much smaller
Mhm.
thing compared to
I don't
Mountain
know about the
Estates.
impact fees, but there was no other things I
Yeah.
can recall. When was that?
That was 2015, I think.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
It was, oh, that's right. It was a funny story because the contractor putting that line in took all summer to put in 900 feet of water line with no other utilities. It was just empty ground. It's like, we had the other contractors putting in thousands of feet a week. And
Yeah.
like, well, what's happened here?
Last quick one. Hypothetically, if Mountain Estates is annexed, there's 4 townhomes over there right now being serviced by the well that's there.
Mhm.
When would, this was a question that came up with coffee with the mayor, when would technically we have to tie that development into our existing water system?
So that's based off of how the developer moves forward with platting those areas.
Mhm.
Right now, it's just an annexation is just a border around that area. There's no plat that the town would have, accept in the annexation process. So after we get through potentially that's the first phase, then we go through the platting and the preliminary platting and the construction, and then once we come upon the final plat, which means construction drawings are done, that's when we would.
Okay.
That would also depend on what they do on the
Right. Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So you were saying the well should be to 200 GPM, but I think the contractor said right now it's only 100.
Right.
So how, because I think you normally have to get an approval from DEQ just to increase. So how do we know if that pump will actually produce that?
We'll leave that up to the developer to provide any final completions of the well with the DEQ so that we can know what it can do, all the permits from the state engineer's office, so that we can determine what the capacity of the well is, if it wants to be upsized with a bigger casing or a bigger pump. That's up to the developer to determine. And then once we get that final capacity, then we can determine what that is versus the required amount, the 205 gallons per minute. And then if it's more, then we'll watch that and we can acquire the well without any complications, then we'll dismiss that source impact fee. If it's less, then it's 100.25 just to make it, or 102.5 gallons, so it's 50% of what we'd need, so then our impact fee would be dropped by 50%.
But if the pump needs to be replaced or anything is sort of at that point, would it be on the developer still, or is it on?
Until we take ownership of it.
Well,
it's
that's
the-
what I'm saying,
the-
once it's annexed in, is that become?
Nope, right now annexed in, we don't own any of that lot, or any of that property, or any of
The well?
the well on it. So as soon as that well is developed and the developer wants to give it to the town, if the town accepts, then we could take ownership of it.
So that's separate than the annexation part?
Any other questions for Ryan? Did you have any other updates?
Just some updates. So the Green Canyon tank, the exterior of the tank wasn't lined last year because of the weather. They're just holding out until we get some more consistent temperatures. Right now it's snowing on and off, so probably not a good time to paint. But, and then I have a permit application from the mayor to sign for Prater transmission design. So
Great, thanks.
if you want to sign that and scan it to me, we're pretty close to getting that in DQ.
And can you just quickly run us through the steps there with the transmission line? So we're doing the engineering, that's ready to roll.
So we're doing the engineering right now. Hopefully by the end of the month or mid-May, we can get that to DQ. And then probably midsummer, we'll look at presenting this to the Forest Service, getting their approval to be able to do that replacement, because we have that service agreement with them, or the kind of conditional use agreement with them to have the transmission line through the forest. I think it's July. We'll get on the application list for level 3 funding with WWDC for the grant funding for the transmission, and then go from there. So if we can get some money from it.
So on that, we're just taking away the broken line that's.
Yeah, right
at
now,
Prater is just.
I mean, Zach can attest to it, but there's many locations. I mean, essentially that line was put in whenever this spring was ever developed. I don't remember when it was, but with a pickaxe and a shovel, so it's about as far as you want to dig down deep. So many times you'll go up it and see pipe in the road.
Right.
And so we're going to replace that and put it down to depth and replace those zeroing boxes that are painted with pressure relief valves and blow-offs and air vacs, so that we can control the water that comes down through there more effectively.
I just had one more question. We are still waiting to hear back from some type of legal counsel on the Elkhorn subdivision, but are you aware of like what that could or could not cost our town as far as the obligation?
No.
And I know that's depending on the obligation we have, but,
As far as like replacing the line,
and furnishing that subdivision water and such.
I can put that on the list.
Okay. Well, I think it would help determine like the impact of all of this for annexing and just the water needs that I would think would change. So I would hope to have that.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't heard back from
It's a
legal
tricky
counsel.
situation.
Yeah.
So just,
Thank you.
I'm working with Garen Stoffer, the attorney representing us on that, and I've been in
Oh, okay.
very close contact with him. He's done a lot of research, and Councilman Ellis gave me a document I needed this morning, and I'll get that to Garen. He's out of town this week, I think, but we're making a lot of progress there.
Good, okay.
So,
Anything else for Ryan?
Thank you, Ryan.
Hey, thank you for being here, I appreciate it. Okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda, financials. Councilman Bitter, it sounds like you're a little under the weather, so,
Yes.
but I hear that you agreed to.
My wife made me wear the mask, okay?
Retta mentioned you were gonna run through the financials. Do you wanna do that first, and then we can talk
Yeah, let me
about
just give,
budget?
let me give you just a brief summary on year-to-date, because I think it's important to understand, we are tracking very close to budget on all our areas, except for capital spend, which just means our capital projects were more delayed than what we originally had forecast. Having said that, our cash balances are higher because of the lower spending in capital. But Trevor has clearly articulated that we are going to be spending the money here in, obviously, as soon as we can get going on roads, the final part of April, May, and June. So we expect all projects, other than the Prater Canyon delivery line, to be completed spending-wise in this, at least the version of the budget we've put together so far. But overall, our cash balances are sitting at 4.4 million versus a budget of 3.5 million. So about $800,000 better than planned. But again, once we get started spending money on some of these, but the meters, the residential meters will have a big impact on that. That's $500,000. We haven't paid anything through March yet. But March, just if you're comparing Revenue came in about $13,000 higher than budget. Expenses were below plan, and, you know, just because of timing of some expenses. So we're sitting in a good spot. I just sent that out today. Sorry for the delay, but if you have any questions on any of the line items or any of the detail, just let Loretta and I know, and we can take a look at it from that end. So, that being said then, moving over to the ordinance for the appropriations of the fiscal year 26-27, I will get the color coded properly done. I forgot all about that because it's been a year, okay? So we'll get the second reading color coded on the changes so that we can clearly see it. But again, the budget as laid out, you know, whether it's general fund, water fund, or overall cash balances, all of those are in there. We have identified the priority projects, capital projects, that we feel are high priority, and we've put those in the plan. There's only 5 projects for roads, and that includes a new chip seal budget of $500,000 for new roads that we hadn't identified yet. And on the water side, we've got 1 carryover project, like I mentioned, and then 4 new projects. So total spend, we would probably spend about 1.1, well, that includes the new authorizations is only about 750,000, but there's 400,000 of additional Crater Canyon delivery line spending in this next year. So again, I know this is the first review. I know there were comments that came in. I figured we'll go with this, post it, or we have posted it. So we'll read it, and then the second round, I guess, we just need input. Where do we change?
So I want to appreciate the council working on this at the work session at the end of last month when I was out of town. I did send you a few comments.
Yep.
You have a couple things I want to go over now. One of the one of the comments we've gotten is that it's still a little hard for the public to discern where funding comes from on some of our capital projects. Now, I know we have the detailed spreadsheet behind it, you know, in our ordinance, though, when someone is looking at this, it's not as clear as it could be if we are taking, say, you know, $250,000 out of the road reserve to resource this capital project. And that's just an example.
Okay.
In previous budgets, prior to this council, it was done quite differently. And if you look at some of those old budget ordinances that are posted, say from the 2004, 2005, it's much more simplistic, but it's very clear on where the funding of capital projects are coming from. Is it partially from excess in the general fund plus some reserves? And so I would like to see if we can come up with a way to make it more clear.
The reason we didn't do it that way was because it was not accurate. And Loretta, if she was here, she would explain that isn't how it works, because we have all these wire class, and sometimes she'll just leave the cash there, okay, for a specific, like equipment reserve or water, you know, whatever. And that wasn't being used like on a month-to-month basis. So like, let's say you spent $50,000 on a water project, it wasn't coming out of that fund. It was just coming out of the general cash fund. That's why we didn't do that. But to your point, we can show where it should come out.
Yes.
Not where it is,
Well, yeah, because
but where it should come
The
out.
reality
Yeah.
is, if we do have additional monies, you know, if we don't have to take it out of reserves, then great,
Yes.
you know, but I think from this is what the plan would be if that's not the case. I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
And then a couple of items that are actually in the budget, just wanted to talk about real quick. So currently, we have a contract with the Sheriff's Department that goes through the end of this calendar year. And I believe it's for $130,000. So we have an increase up to $140,000 for the Sheriff's Office, but as far as I know, we don't have a new agreement or contract. And so why was that?
Yeah, go ahead, Trevor.
Why don't we have a new one?
Well, why did the council decide to go ahead and put more money than what we're currently under contract to provide? Is that, because we don't have anything in writing yet. Were we just trying to plan ahead?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
More than anything, it was just to be conservative.
Because I would imagine that because I know the sheriff's been trying to come in and meet with us and wants to talk about, so we're probably sort of anticipating a higher ask.
Exactly,
Okay.
and that's why we put it in.
All right.
I
So,
think that's what the idea was, like that we
Well,
would have to increase it. So it was, I think he gave a certain percentage to increase it to, and so that was what was put in. So.
yeah.
And then the other item that I have a concern with, and I did watch the video from all of the work session from last month, is the amount of money that was put in for Lucky's Place. And I know that it was originally $15,000, and the council settled on half that amount. But I am very concerned that this is not a legal appropriation for that amount. The Wyoming State Constitution prohibits appropriation for charitable and benevolent purposes. So I think we are, and I have spoken with the mayor of Afton, the mayor of Alpine, and the mayor of Thane. None of those towns provide any money to Lucky's, nor have they in the past, at least since those mayors have been in office. It's a bit of a slippery slope when you try to appropriate funds for nonprofits or charitable organizations, and I understand the services provided, and I fully support what Lucky's Place does for the community. But unless, we've provided them a small amount of money the past couple of years because they've invoiced us for the service where Jim will go and take a dog after hours, and I think it's been $800, and I think that was talked about at the work session. But I don't think it's legal for us to just appropriate $7,500 and then have them give us an invoice for what exactly? Why are we picking winners and losers for nonprofits? Why aren't we then providing money for the senior center or for the food bank? So it's just, I think the council needs to be really careful here, and I think we really need to change this, and I would recommend tonight, before we approve this first reading, that we revise that amount back to something, I'd be think it would make sense to say, let's make it $1,200. It was $800 last year, let's make it $1,200. That's $100 a month if Jim has to take one dog a month. And I think last year he took 6 or 5.
5 or 6, yeah.
Right, so it's just, we don't want to run afoul of state statutes or the Constitution or how we appropriate public funds. So that's probably my biggest concern about this first reading tonight.
So I think it was 1,800 was the contract that, at least that's what I was told that we had, prior to whenever somebody just stopped invoicing or stopped paying, I'm not sure. I spoke with Lucky's regarding costs, and so this was a number that, originally it was the 15, but the 7,500 contributed. I know that our SMO had actually asked them to not be releasing dogs until they found out if the fees have been paid, make sure fees have been paid to the town for citations. And then also we're having them take the animals that we are rounding up from our SMO. We're also counting on them to take strays in from our emergency response, like catastrophe response for safety. So I feel like we're asking them to do things, and they are also like going to other areas, other towns to ask for money because it's become obvious that they're coming up short. So that was my point of view. I don't think it's against state statute because we're not donating the money, we're paying for a service.
Okay, but that would be under contract if we're paying for a service, and I don't see a contract.
Well, I guess that's what this is about too. But we weren't under contract when Trevor gave $1,000 to the Mormon church to put up flags, and they only did that twice. And I don't even think that was allocated by the town council to do so. And I'm pretty sure they're also a charitable organization or a nonprofit.
It's actually the Boy Scouts of America.
Well, that wasn't who it was given to. Our town administrator actually gave it to a church group.
think it has to be in the name of the Boy Scouts.
It was
I would
probably
think.
because we lost our contract with the Boy Scouts that year, and we had the money in the budget
Well,
for the
We
Boy
didn't give
Scouts.
it to
so-
the Democratic Party or the volunteers that were doing it. It's given it to the Mormon Church. So I'm just saying, if we're going to cut down on donations, it's
We're
very.
not legally, we cannot provide donations,
Well, that's why
period.
it wasn't called a donation. So it was actually discussed to be called it's a payment for the service. So if you need a contract, I'm
You mentioned the contract, I'd like to see that one and/or the new contract.
well, I think we had an old one. I think it was Loretta who actually found
So
it. She said it was an invoice.
It was an invoice for $800, that's what we paid last year, so.
Well, the years prior, I think it was 1,800 is what she had told me. But honestly, if it's about going against state statute, it should be no money, or it should be a money that actually is paying for the services we're receiving, which is what my hope was in putting it in the budget.
I think that it should be more in line with what we've done in the past, which is not 7,500. So again, I would support something closer to 1,200, 800, but we can't just appropriate $7,500 without knowing exactly what we're getting. And the only service, and I understand that they have to keep dogs, you know, if Jim drops them off, but for all we know, those dogs don't even come from our town. They wandered in here from the county. And so then, is the county paying them any money? Is Thane paying them any money? No, they're not. And again, I'm not trying to, it's not anything against Lucky's, it's just how we appropriately use public funds. And I don't think we should be, quite frankly, providing funds to anybody that we don't have some sort of service agreement with.
Okay.
And
So how about if I have them come next, the work session in May and discuss that? Would that be best? I mean, I would have had them.
why don't
come
they just
sooner.
provide something in writing if that's, you know, if they have a request or, you know, this is the service we would provide and.
Well, I was thinking, like, you spoke with other towns, but probably speaking with Lucky's about why they want a certain amount of money would probably be best. So that's why I was saying, if they're able to come in May.
I'm not comfortable with having just Lucky's come and do that, because then again, why can't the food bank come and do that? Why
Because we
can't
don't
the senior
do-
center?
Well, the
do
senior,
that?
actually Alpine does pay to the senior center for the meals that they
They
provide.
do, at the end of the year, they will pay an invoice that the senior center provides, because the senior center comes up there and provides meals at their civic center or wherever they do that. So again, they've provided a particular service, so I understand that aspect of it, but
And that's the service that I'm asking that we pay for. So we're saying, like, you're saying that money seems like too much. I've been told by Lucky's that $800 is too small, so that's why I'm requesting that they come and that the discussion can be made.
Okay, there is a big difference between $800 and $7,500. I can't go that way.
That's right. But you're needing the
We-
information for
That
it.
was a very, Wade's exact words were we're just plugging something in and we reduced it by half in our last work session. I'm completely open to conversations. The more I've thought about it is okay, what does Lucky's provide? And if we have a contract where it's, okay, we bring a dog down, it's gonna have to be up to Lucky's to tell us, unless somebody else knows, how much it costs to keep a dog there every day. If our citizens aren't going to pay for their dog to be bailed out of Lucky's, then if we're dropping them off, then we have to do something to help provide, or we're gonna have dogs just running around stray. I mean, if they can come back with us and say, this is how much it's costing us per dog, and then they invoice us at the end of every month, I mean, I'm open to that. They're providing a service, or we just exclude them completely and stop taking the animals to Lucky's, would be my, how can we expect them to do a service for us for free?
I'd rather they put in writing and just submit to the council. I don't think they need to come in and present the reasons why they need funding. Why can't they just
I don't
provide?
have a problem with them
Yeah,
writing it or
whatever.
coming to
If that's
talk, doesn't
better
matter.
for you.
So, I mean, it has to be something that's justifiable, and I don't understand why in the past $800 or $1,800 was enough. You know, I also understand that they've changed management, right? Mary Ann retired, so now they're in a new management. So
Well, that's what I think it would be helpful. If you're wanting that information, having them come and appear and explain would probably be the best way to do that. If that's the reason that you're hesitating. And I know costs have gone up on everything else, and so I just don't understand why we would expect a service for free. I don't
We
think that's-
haven't done for free in the
Well, we
past, but
haven't.
we haven't provided $15,000 either,
I
so.
understand that, so that's why you're wanting information and explanation. I'm happy to facilitate them coming in, or if you guys just want them to
They
write
can
a
provide
letter.
something, and I'm fine with them providing something in writing, because I am concerned about suddenly having other nonprofits that want to come in and explain
It's
why
not about
they.
it being a nonprofit. Like I said, our town administrator went ahead and administered money and nobody said a word.
So
Okay, so I'm
they
not
provided the service and
understanding.
gave us an invoice, so that's not correct. I didn't give anybody any money. It was for a service.
That wasn't approved though by the town council to just have them do
It was approved in the budget. It was $1,000.
to the Boy Scouts.
Boy Scouts don't exist anymore, and this group used to be. the
And
Boy
I
Scouts.
asked them
And they
to
were
take
doing
it
the
out
same
the last
service
3
that the Boy
years.
Scouts were performing
Well,
for
so
the
was the
town.
Democratic Party and so were the volunteers, but they weren't given $1,000.
So no one was given $1,000. They performed the service and sent us an invoice.
But when
There's
we
a
asked the Boy
clarification there.
Scouts to do that, we had them put up flags for multiple.
They did it 3 times. They offered to do it with a 4th. It was pouring rain, so I did it.
So
And so
I
did the
apologize,
guys.
I was under the impression they only did it twice.
Well, you're wrong.
So what dates did they do it?
Okay, we're not gonna get into the tit for tat on something that's in the past, right? The bottom
I'm
line
trying to
here is that
understand why,
we are not gonna appropriate public funds for nonprofit or charitable purposes unless there's a specific service that is outlined and that cost is provided.
okay, so
Period.
that, I guess that's my concern, like we have been doing that. We are doing that for a service.
What,
And now I'm just asking it to be increased.
so then they can provide something in writing about why that increase is required.
And I don't know why the other towns, we're,
So yeah, the other
That's my
towns do not do
biggest
this.
I
so.
understand, they've
But
been
maybe we
approached
should
by
be the
Lucky's.
first one to take a
If
stand.
we wanna get on a slippery slope of.
It's not slippery when we're paying for a service. That's what I'm saying, you're justifying it with the flags, but that wasn't
It's
even approved.
$1,000, and we've been paying Lucky's $800 to $1,800, and I've only seen $800.
Once in how many years?
Yeah, so.
How many
For
years has
all
it been
the
on the council?
service.
It was
for-
brought up because it came to my attention,
Right.
so I brought it to you and Trevor.
Mhm.
We wrote them an $800 check with no invoice.
No, they provided an invoice.
Yeah, we would not.
Okay, that's right, there was an invoice for, all I want between Lucky's and the town is to agree on a number so that they're not feeling like we're taking animals to them without paying them for that.
Yeah, I have no problem with that either, but I'd like to see the agreement and what that number is.
I think we can all agree that we're in the first reading and that number can be adjusted.
so back to the point you made, $6,300, we could easily adjust it. But again, this is what we would go ahead and pass tonight as the first reading. Right? Or would we, and then put it in the second one, knowing that we're making the comment to say,
Well, this is what's currently in the first reading,
yes,
so the council can support it or not. Or there can be
make a,
a line change before we do the vote tonight to change
okay,
something,
with the $6,300 reduction.
whatever the amount would be,
Yeah,
yes.
6,300, right.
Why are we changing it then?
Well, that's the question. I mean, I heard a proposal from the mayor that she would like to reduce it down to $1,200.
Why?
Well,
We don't have any justification for $7,500.
But you don't have any justification.
And we'll make it $800, that's what they paid last year.
But that's how you're justifying it.
That's something we at least have in writing that they said was the service they provided was $800 worth.
I have a feeling that this is being singled out because of what it was like my
No,
suggestion.
it's not always singled out because of you. I'm concerned that the council
But you're
is
not
following
concerned about the
the
fact that our
Wyoming
town
Constitution when it
administrator did what
comes
he
to
did.
public funds and how we
But we
appropriate
were
them.
giving out to Boy Scouts, which was also a nonprofit.
And it was money that was already in the budget that was allocated for
But
flags.
a decision to actually go forward with a different, it wasn't given to the Boy Scouts, it was given to someone else.
That did the same service.
No, they didn't actually. We were giving it to the Boy Scouts to do all of the holidays that we have the
So
flags out.
tonight, we can read this ordinance, and if anyone wants to make a motion to change it, that's fine. Otherwise, the council can either vote to approve or not approve the first reading. So moving on, building officials report.
Well, good afternoon, Councilman Lehman. An up-to-date report. This month, we have issued 2 single-family building permits, 2 garage building permits, 1 basement permit for addition. We got 3 water tap applications, 4 driveway applications. 1 driveway application includes 2 accesses. We're still waiting on the annex or the 4 lots that are being combined, which will be next month. So we got several sets of plans in this week that we're starting to review. So things are starting to pick up. I think things have slowed down because of the economy and what's going on with the war. Some people holding back because the cost of, the increase on materials have slowed people up a little bit. But I think it's going to start picking up. I'm definitely seeing a lot more activity this week than we have all year. So,
Quick question for you. You said there was 1 driveway permit that had 2
that's
accesses
correct.
to the road? I know that was controversial. Is that still controversial, or did we ever solve that issue?
Well, that went to Zach. That pertains to the 4 lots. They're being combined in 2 lots. So, they came in, is that the 2
I think
applications?
it's a different one, it's someone who just wants a circle driveway.
Oh, yeah, there was
So we have
another one.
two accesses.
Yes.
So I don't think we didn't ever change that ordinance, did we, that they're gonna
No.
be one
I
approach?
don't know that we did or didn't,
We
but I
did,
know
we
that
talked
was
about
a,
it previously.
that was
We
a
never changed it.
controversial issue there for,
So,
As far as I know, up to date, we are still allowing 2 accesses, 2 separate fees.
it's gonna be easier.
So we did finish up the building over there at the Water Bay, extended the office, that got completed last month. Still trying to finish up all the controls for the valves this week, but, and plus the ongoing Mountain Estates. So, but things are picking up, I think, by the end of this month, we should have some more permits issued.
How many single-family homes do we have so far?
2.
2.
But I got
year to date, how many?
2.
2.
Well, that was as of March 31st.
Yeah.
Okay.
2, and as of last year, we had 2 as of March
Okay.
31st, so we're about this.
Same.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of activity on the lots for sale. I've got a lot of phone calls about easements, and, such as Hardman Canal easements. And now we got people trying to buy up these, these lots that are available for sale. So things are moving, but the building's kind of
Hasn't geared up.
has not geared up. This is the month when things really start picking up. So, it did last year anyway, so. But that's all I got. Any questions?
Questions, council? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bell, patiently waiting. Next item is travel and tourism grant applications.
I think I've told you before, the secret to getting through public meetings is learning how to sleep with your eyes open. It's an acquired trait.
Years of experience.
Years of experience. Thanks for giving us a few minutes for the Travel and Tourism Board. Tonight, on your regular meeting, you have a couple of sizable grant applications in front of you for approval. The first is for the Wall That Heals, which is a large-scale event coming to Star Valley. I believe it's the 9th through the 12th of July. This event is a big deal. It has a budget of about $250,000. It is a 3/4 scale model of the Vietnam War Memorial in Washington DC. Comes in on a truck or more than one truck. It's coming from Billings, Montana, and when it leaves here, it goes to Iowa. This is the only stop for it in the Intermountain West. So the organizing committee expects a sizable crowd, not only veterans, but people who just want to see it. They have a grant application in to Star Valley Ranch, as well as most of the other communities in the valley, for $12,000. Our board discussed it. We've met with the applicants on 2 occasions, and we unanimously recommended to the town council that grant application be approved. The second grant application is coming from the Friends of the Bridger Teton Forest, and it too is $12,567 or something like that. And it's for the Ambassadors Program this summer. As we've talked about before, the Friends learned a lot from their experience last year. This year's grant application is strictly for Star Valley Ranch and the trails that lead out of Star Valley Ranch up into the forest. They've given up on Grover Park and all that. So the good news is that the grant application is much more oriented towards Star Valley Ranch. The bad news is it's more money than it was last year. So it too is a fairly large application. Our board, in our meeting on the 25th of March, again recommended to the town council that grant application be approved. There is a third grant application coming from the ranch market, right?
Yes, we're trying to find some other
Okay.
donors as well, but.
That's fine.
Yeah,
But-
but it's actually not a grant application because it's for the.
Well, that's what
town.
we deal in, is grant applications.
Yeah, as I explained during the meeting, it's the town's like money that Loretta advised us not to actually apply for grants, just to request a certain amount of money.
I understand,
So-
but we do that through an application process, and I think it's semantics. But as soon as you're ready to submit, I will call our group together on short notice, and we'll get you back in front of the council
Thank you.
as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
So, the ranch market application won't be in front of you tonight, but could be in front of you as early as next month. I think one of the sort of takeaways this year is the lodging tax. The town has been collecting lodging tax for several years, and we have essentially money in the bank. We can afford these grants. Can we afford them next year and the year after and the year after? No, because we're using some of our back funds now. And we may want to sit down and talk with the council about kind of establishing some additional rules for grant management so that we can better manage our funds going forward. I also sit on the county tourism board, and the county has adopted some rules for their grant applications, and we may want to take a look at those. They are relatively generic and pretty simple, and would probably work in our context as well. So that's something we ought to put on the radar screen for this year. The Wall That Heals application is a one-time deal. Once it's here and gone, it won't be back. So that's a one-time application. The Friends of the Bridger Teton We've talked about this before. I think we need to keep on our radar screen whether or not this grant application is valuable to the town, fits within the legislative intent of the lodging tax, and I think we ought to keep that discussion going. So that's kind of where we are for tonight.
Okay. I have two concerns, one for each one of the two.
Fire away.
proposals.
Do I need to get behind here?
No, you're fine. Concern number one is on the wall of the heels. If I heard them correctly, there are various levels of support that can be placed on that wall of heels. The $12,000 is the highest level support that they are requesting from anybody. And from my perspective, I'm not sure that the town is going to receive any benefit from that high level of support for it.
Well, my understanding, if everybody shows up, that the organizing committee says it's gonna show up, every room in every house in the north end of the county will be booked.
Okay, and that's grand total of 40 in the town of Star Valley Ranch. On the Friends of the Bridger Teton grant proposal, a lot of what they're talking about doing in that one is going out and working on the trails, going out of the town. We've got a trails committee that's doing that. So what's our benefit on paying somebody from a separate organization to work on the trails and not paying our own trail crew for doing the same work?
Well, I don't know, and I think that's why we need to keep that conversation active. You know, if the town council doesn't want to do this anymore with the Friends, then you shouldn't be shy about saying, no, the county turned down their grant application.
Yeah, well, see, the problem I have with that grant application is two-part. Part one is an educational piece that goes on, takes place. Part two is go work on the trails. And I'm having problems with part two, not part one. So,
I think that's fair enough.
so I guess the big question becomes one of,
How big is your problem?
yeah, what do we do tonight? Because you're recommending full funding for both of them.
Yeah, based on the, let's see, how do I say this diplomatically?
Just say it, don't worry about diplomatics.
The county tourism meeting took place after our meeting, and some things that came up in the county, I mean, they asked for a lot of money from the county, $26,000, I think, which is a lot of money. Of course, the county has more resources than we do. But the county has, one of their rules is that their maximum grant application can only be $10,000. So on one hand, they had an easy veto of that application by simply saying, you're out of bounds. Stepped over the line and you need to get back on the field, $10,000 or less. Reading between the lines, they had issues with the scope of the grant, and it's just sort of a squishy program. I don't know how to say it any different. If we had our meeting after the county tourism board meeting, it might have been a different result, I don't know. Speaking as one person, speaking as the chair of the committee, I would have felt differently about it after I attended the county tourism meeting than I did before. But that's the way it goes. Now the folks from Friends of the Bridger Teton will be there tonight, as they're usually very good about coming in, and I think you ought to hit them up with your questions.
Good.
I would like to mention, just because I was at the meeting, that the Friends of the Bridger Teton also mentioned that they were hoping that they would accumulate funding after this year to hopefully be like paying a lot of these. So that even though the number is large this year, they're hoping after this year
Right.
it would go down.
Their heart's in the right place, but they're trying to do a lot with, and that's why I say it's a squishy program. They're trying to do a lot with very few human resources. And I can't tell you how well it's going because I just don't know. But, you know, one of the things that you always need to consider is, okay, what happens if you don't do this program? Do these ambassadors obviously go away? Is that okay? You know, I don't think the world's gonna come to an end, but I do think, you know, they mentioned in our meeting that they wanna go deep into the forest this year because they're concentrating on the Star Valley trails, or Star Valley Ranch trails. And so they wanna go deep into the forest this year. They may be providing a resource that the trails crew can't always provide.
Right.
So it's a tough application. I don't doubt your questions.
I do think it makes a lot of sense for us to, and for the Travel and Tourism Board to take a look at maybe putting some rules around grant applications in future, just with maybe, you know, a cap on the amount of funding and things like that, only because, I mean, we have $25,000 budgeted for revenue for lodging tax this year, and we're at about 70%, so we may or may not hit that budget target, but that's, you know, these two grants would eat that up in a single year,
This is
right?
not the applicant, we've been discovered
Yes.
as a source of funding.
Right.
We need to be careful about that.
80,000 total, basically, that if you said, hey, take all your revenues, that's our balance.
Right.
remaining.
Right.
So that's not sustainable for any length of time.
So I do think putting some rules is a good idea.
Yes.
And I, for one, don't like to take our accounts down to zero. I'd like to keep some money on hand because you never know when something really
Right.
valuable might come along.
Okay.
And I think we do want to support things like the ranch market. We need to be, I mean, that's ours. And I think we do want to support, if we're going to do it, we need to do it right.
Mark came up with another proposal that didn't get discussed in the Travel and Tourism Board, but it's showing up on the agenda tonight,
Oh, this is the
hats, the logo, the ambassadors.
Barb and Deb Stafford are riding herd on some branded merchandise. And they're gonna, I think
I'm on the agenda. They're on today's.
they're on the agenda later on.
Oh, later today, this morning.
So
Afternoon.
I think they'll do most of their talking tonight.
And I'll be fast, because I sent you a memo and everything's in there. So all it's very fast.
I'm trying to be fast.
On the Travel and Tourism Board, we're talking future, you know, regulations and whatnot, what we do. We passed this proposal with knowing full well that there would probably be modifications to what we were asking. It was just being passed as that. We couldn't really set a finite amount of what the services were. And so that's kind of where we were, as I took it. That would be modified and can be, obviously. We just passed it to move it along.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions for Mr. Bell?
Can I go now?
Can you go now? Yes, yes, you may. Thank you very much, Frank.
That raises two questions.
Okay, here we
Do we want to modify the amount proposals for tonight from the two agencies, or deny and, we got three options. We can modify it, we can deny it, or we can pass it.
So the one for the Wallet Hills is 12,000,
Yeah.
and then,
Do we know what the next level down, the 12,000 is?
They mentioned it, but I don't remember, do you?
No.
and then the Friends of the Bridge of Teton is 12,597.
There's no microphone, so it doesn't matter. My suggestion, not that you asked, but,
I'll ask.
okay, would be to leave the wall grant application alone. With that, like I mentioned, that event is a big deal. The other towns are all contributing. And I think it's, it's pretty cut and dry.
Do we know what the other towns are contributing?
I think they're all contributing whatever they ask for. I'm not aware of anybody that balked. But I can only speak for Alpine and Afton. Because I've been involved in those conversations. I don't know what Thane's doing. Smoot is probably not contributing.
All right, well, we can run through that a little bit.
I don't know what happens, to, well, I guess I do know what happens, to the grant application from Friends of the Bridge of Teton. If you funded it for 10,000 or 8,000 or whatever, I think it just reduces the amount of time the ambassadors are on the trails.
Thank you, Frank. All right, moving on to board reports. We've been at it for 2.5 hours here, so we'll try and get this wrapped up. Finance Advisory Board, Councilman Merrill, anything from that board?
They primarily went over the budget, and we had a discussion at the last workshop regarding what they were wanting. I was under the impression that the finance board would give some type of recommendation. I don't know why they wouldn't on the annexation. I thought that was why we were getting stuff together. I think it is important to do, considering I feel like some of the numbers, I don't know who exactly is putting them all together or where we're getting them, but something I was concerned about with like the cost for employees for plowing is if we have them at $30.88 and just our budget alone that Wade came up with for what we pay our employees, I don't know that any of them make that. I think most of them make more than that with benefits and everything. So like those sorts of numbers are concerning that we're finding those. I don't know, that like, I don't know if that's what we're basing everything off of, but I feel like the finance board should have some type of recommendation in that, considering we got a water board and
So in
road board.
in our ordinances, recommendation on an annexation is the purview of the planning commission. The planning commission asked for input from the water board, and that's why we ended up writing a recommendation. So I did not go out as mayor and ask all of the boards to provide a recommendation. As far as the cost estimates and revenue estimates draft that were put together, those were provided to the chairman of the finance board, and I have yet to get any feedback on paper and email other than your question today. So they've had an opportunity for the past 2 months to provide direct feedback, or at least respond to my email, and I have gotten nothing.
Okay, so they did request financials from the contractor.
Right, and so on that, in our ordinances, there is one section in our subdivision ordinance that says for the planning commission can request to receive adequate or notice of adequate financial resources. And the planning commission did get a notice from the developer as far as from the bank saying they have this much capital on hand, which the planning commission looked at that and said, well, they could probably get bonded. But we are not providing that as private company information. We didn't post it on the website, and we're not going to provide that around. We don't have financial statements. It was a letter from the bank saying this is how much capital this company has in the bank right now. So when we go to a subdivision development agreement and bonding and things like that were to come in, then, you know, that would cover resourcing going forward. But
For
we did
enough
not.
for bonding,
Yes.
but would it cover for impact fees and everything that we actually need?
So, I mean, I would like to think the developer would not sign an annexation agreement if he couldn't write the check. But we will, that
Well,
would,
don't we have the right to know that? I mean, and want to know that? I don't want to assume that, especially when we've already had questions about some of the legitimacy of like the past project, it's like, and this is a lot bigger. So that's concerning.
I think so far, or thus far, in my reading, we have met everything we need to meet in our ordinances to be at this point in time in the annexation process. So there's still more information to come. And as we go through the annexation agreement, if the council needs, you know, more support to feel confident that, you know, the developer could meet, you know, $200,000 impact fee that they would have to write, then we can work through that with him at that time, so.
2 weeks out, though, we're supposed to make a decision, so I think that's why.
But again, that decision is to determine if the annexation meets those requirements in the statute that Mr. Peterson went through. It is not to start reading an annexation ordinance or to sign an agreement, an annexation agreement. So it's just like a step in the process, and it will be up to the council to decide if we want to take the next step or not at the end of the month. Okay, anything else from the finance board?
Well, the concern for some of the costs and everything that are posted, so.
And so the estimates as far as the roads, and I think it's in those documents in the beginning, it explains where those estimates came from and the assumptions and the ground rules that are in there. Those are the base hourly wages, or the average hourly wage. It does not include loading or overhead or benefits and things like that. It's just flat out average wage as a starting point.
So it's not the actual cost of the employee?
It's how much per hour, but it does not include, and I think it says that in there, it does not include benefits.
So, it says it on the document?
I believe so, and there's a page in the beginning of those documents that has the ground rules and assumptions.
So it's not an actual cost?
It's an hourly wage.
Are you referring to the annexation cost estimates draft?
Yes,
Okay.
and the revenue estimates draft.
I
Yes.
guess I just
Yeah.
want it to be accurate if we're going off of those numbers and it's not all entailed in there, then it's not accurate. So nothing else from the finance board?
All right, thank you. Natural Resources Board. Councilman.
I just have a small, like, piggyback on that conversation because the NRV actually has not really delved into what the cost or problems are, but I feel like we are surrounded by a significant amount of educated people that can give us their feedback, especially like the NRV is very focused on weeds. So, and I've brought this up in other workshops of things that their concern is, that committee is concerned with. I think we should be listening to anybody that has an opinion on these things, especially our boards. On that, the NRV, I think everything's gone out on like the gardening tanks and everything has been published. So I think we're good. We have a meeting tomorrow too, but everything else
Rolling
has
right along.
been communicated to the citizens.
So tonight, we are appointing Craig Adler as a regular board member.
Yeah.
And that's, I believe, the board voted
Yeah.
or wanted that at their last meeting, if I'm not
Correct.
mistaken. Okay, so that is in tonight's agenda. Okay, anything else from NRB?
No.
All right, Planning Commission, I think all the council was at the last Planning Commission meeting, other than Councilman Bitter, who was gallivanting in the tropics. So you should have received, Councilman Bitter and the rest of the council should have received the final determination and finding document. And the last Planning Commission meeting, that was the bulk of what occurred, other than a lot combination. Okay, Roads Advisory Board.
Roads Advisory Board met and they came up with 2 recommendations to the town. One, they developed a prioritized They prioritize the arterial roads for both dust suppression, if not asphalt or chip seal treatment, and general maintenance. Number 1 priorities are Vista Drive and Plat 20. Number 2 is Cedar Creek Drive, Vista East, Vista West. Number 3, Cedar Drive, Hardman, and North Forest Drive. Number 4 is Aspen Glow Drive, Birch Drive, Choke Cherry Drive, and Dogwood. They have also put together a complete list of all 31 roads in the town, identifying them as arterial roads, collector roads, and local roads, complete with what level they are at this point in time, and when maintenance needs to be done on them, if needed. For like example, the chip seal roads going forward. They, as I mentioned earlier, they took a look at the dust mitigation process and recommended move to the powder or flake type on an experimental basis to see how well it works, and then move forward with the next process is to start looking at solving the drainage issues along the sides of the roads we have in various areas of the town. And along those lines, according to the WHAM, I just sent it out, the state of Wyoming is looking at some method to deal with wastewater and drainage that they're going to be looking at on a statewide basis. So hopefully that will be moving forward.
So in our budget, we're allocating $500,000 to chip seal. So it would be helpful, because that was requested by the finance board 2 weeks ago and by this council, to have that list so that we can determine if we actually want to vote for our budget tonight. So can you please send that to us? I think it was requested then before you guys had your meeting.
Is it the same list that's on the agenda from the meeting?
Yeah,
So the
is
agenda.
that on the agenda?
Well, if that's how it turned out.
Yep, that's the list.
Oh, it's on there?
It's posted on the town website, but we can email
I know the
it.
agenda.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, good to know.
And it does say chip seal and or dust abatement, so, but all of those roads, no, not those, not Birch, Choke Cherry.
And then if we can also get the list for pothole, like that Trevor and Zach had figured out, that would be great. I just don't want to be approving a budget that we don't actually have a plan to.
If I understand it correctly, the pothole stuff is going on out of this year's budget.
That's correct.
The excess money from what we saved on Hardman Road, Hardman Vista, that's the pothole piece. $500,000 that's in the budget is there for moving on through that priority list to get them chip sealed, unless we get the grant, at which time the grant kicks in.
I understand that, but I didn't know what the list was. Like, you said the road corp was supposed to determine and let us know, and we haven't seen that. And as far as potholes, I don't think that actually, I mean, it's gonna be into the next budget as well.
We also have expenses identified in the new budget
Yeah.
for pothole remediation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the point is, like, just putting that in the budget like that doesn't make it a great idea.
Yeah, just having a list of
Where, yeah, and just the amount that way. It's just saying 80 grand for this, and good luck with it. It doesn't accomplish what we're trying to
So
accomplish.
it's very difficult next year to predict where your problem areas are gonna be. So if we create a list, it may not hold true based on how your winter is. For next fiscal year, next spring, I can't tell you where there's gonna be a big problem. So if we give you a list, it's probably not gonna hold true.
So they're gonna be able to finish all of it this year before June, or before the end of June.
No, you're gonna have potholes no matter what, as long as you have dirt roads, period. There's no way around that.
I understand, but there's a way to mitigate and help them, which is what the money is for. So that's why I just think it's important for us to start looking at where this money is actually going, instead of just saying, oh, here's what it's for, and we have 35 miles. So
The
trying to
issue is
specify.
if you're too specific in a budget, too specific, like this road, this road, this
No,
road,
I understand.
and it doesn't happen, then you get a resident that's very upset, which we did on Plat 5, because they didn't see what they wanted to last year, right? That's the only caveat to that process.
Well,
You've
the
got to be
other part
careful.
is that it's not getting accomplished then either. If
Well,
we're not-
there could be another project that took higher priority because of the
But
circumstances.
the money shouldn't be going somewhere, right?
Well,
Somewhere else.
no, the money should be set aside
So-
for pothole remediation, no matter where in the ranch it's done,
Yeah.
no matter where.
I think that's the problem, like, if I'm just going to approve 80 grand for that, I just want to make sure that it's going to areas that actually have issues.
Well, you could list all the areas then, say, here's
Right.
our projects that we know need pothole remediation, we just don't know which
We
one. we're gonna
specify
do.
which roads we're going to go ahead and chip seal, so I just feel like it's something, and then if you have to add more or take more away, then that's one thing. Obviously, our budget is changed frequently that way by
Yes.
whoever, but, yeah. So that's why I think as a council to make these decisions, specifying some of that would be helpful. I think our citizens would appreciate it as well.
So we have on the town website, and it was posted a number of weeks ago, there's a road rehabilitation schedule for 2026 that only goes up to the end of this budget year. And on it, it does not have specifics on pothole remediation, but we can certainly add that. But it does include the chip seal that's getting finished on Vista and Plat 21 and Plat 5. And so what we'll need is going forward in the new budget, what does the rest of that, like the $500,000 that's in there for chip seal, the prioritization where those are gonna go. So we need to, and that's part of when I was talking about capital projects and how those are resourced, but in addition, there have been questions about, having a little more detail and yet not having so much detail that then there's a happy medium somewhere. But it would be good if we could identify, we're intending to, once we finish last year's chip seal, to move on to these roads. And then I'm sure we can get a little paragraph to go along with our little schedule here on, what Zach said today about, we're gonna do the pothole remediation from Vista to Green Canyon on Vista East, and we can come up with a little, at least descriptor of what's happening there. And then I think it'd be difficult for us to, once we take care of potholes we know of this season, though, to project road maintenance needs too early in the new budget process.
Let me clarify slightly. Given the priority list that came from the roads board, if it's followed by the town, Vista Drive and Plat 20 and 4 and 5 will be done in this year's budget. That means next year's budget will start with Cedar Creek Drive, Vista East, and Vista West.
So just 3?
Look at the length of those roads.
Half a
Well-
million, 5 miles.
Are they, so that is the idea that we're doing a full 5 miles?
I think that includes some of what we're finishing up this year, if I remember right.
Shouldn't be.
Okay, I think we need to write it up in like a summary. I think we can do that so that it's a little more clear for everyone.
Yeah, and anything that the road board had as well sent out to us so that we know. So I know that was requested 2 weeks ago.
Anything else on roads? Right, okay, sorry, just trying to move us along. Barb's been patiently waiting, traveling tourism.
I'm going to try to make it quick because I know we've got another date at 2 o'clock. This is about promotions, and it's driven internally by the town, which is why we didn't talk about it in travel tourism's grant applications. I sent out this memo, so this is your guide for this discussion. Being promotional, and we're a unique position here as the town that we're not a regular town, the best asset to use for promotion for Star Valley Ranch is our own people. We haven't really talked too much about it. We've been bouncing around. This is the first time it's coming out as a proposal, but we've been looking at logos, which includes the one that I sent to you, but we're really trying to be focused for this first action. Wyoming statute says that 60% of the lodging tax monies get used for promotion. Of the $78,000 that's currently in reserve to 2025, knowing that we've already talked about the fact that we're oversubscribed potentially for our funds for this year, we would, for this activity, need to tap into the promotional piece of the 78,000, which is only 46. One thing to remember as we keep washing the money in and out of cash is that we have to account for the fact that it all gets binned properly. Most of the applications that come in hit the promotional part of what we have available. In this particular case, there's a two-step thing for this proposal. One is that we have a initial conservative launch of the logo that we've converged on, that I've looked at putting in multiple different colors and stuff, but keeping it pretty consistent all the way across. So there's only one, and the vendor would actually guard it for only our use. The idea is that it's much more simplified, cheaper, everything to reproduce, and it gets away and protects the seal that we use with the town for official business. So the proposal itself, in this case, the initial launch, if we're okay with the logo, is that we would go with the hat because it's most popular. Most popular colors for a hat are black and dark gray. And because it's summer launch, we're kind of opting for dark gray. That's what we would recommend. In order to do it in a conservative launch, if you're okay with the logo, we would recommend that we take money out of the reserves to fund a giveaway to a small number of residents here on the ranch that have currently demonstrated they're volunteering, public-facing people that are good ambassadors for tourism and visitors for the town. Got a rough idea of what that number currently is, plus or minus, plus some growth if we had some other volunteer projects that we wanted to use for this 250 year, the 20th anniversary of town, and Wallet Heels or any other things that we see for the summer that we would cover in the giveaway budget. The reason I'm trying to stay in a giveaway type thing for the first round is in 2025, 2026. That would mean that we wouldn't have to collect sales tax. Keeps things a little simpler. So first one would be that. We could expand it a little into maybe some samples of promotional products that we could have. We could try to substantiate the quantity to order on a pre-order basis that we could offer at the ranch market and other things. So it's a continuing thing. The first step here is the launch of a hat as a giveaway item that doesn't require the sales tax. The number for that, for 7 boxes of hats, which triggers a discount, is roughly $3,500. I think we can come in less than that. There's potential ads, 2 things, another $300, probably less if there were ambassadors you wanted to send to Valley events to represent the town. Probably a giveaway t-shirt to go to the hat. We could do that pre-order. So that's at $3,800. If we decided, because it's reserve money anyway, that we want to do some sample items, I'd say my recommendation is to set aside out of the reserve promotional $46,000, roughly $5,000. I'm sure we can come under, so that we could get all of the cost to the town pretty much taken care of. Because phase 2, what we would like to see is offering items at Ranch Market, other things. We haven't worked out all the details for the next fiscal year that would hopefully just be a recycling of money. So we would leverage what's in the promotional account, what's coming in, that can be based on promotion, but it wouldn't be costing us anything because we would be offering merchandise at cost.
So how many total hats would you order then?
So for
5,000.
Oh, so it's for this first little one, they end up being about $20 a piece. So with setup and everything, you're looking at 7 boxes of hats. That's like $168.
Okay.
So that allows about 50% growth on the number of volunteers that we quickly identified when we try to gauge what that number would be. And that would be the giveaway, which is much less than 20,000 or whatever it could be, because I don't think, based on what we've seen in the lodging tax collection, that we're going to grow fast at all with that promotional budget. And now that we've got a grant application out there, I think we'll see more draw on it. And we've got other things to fund, like Ranch Market. So the request was that we're okay with the logo, that we can actually start it. We can handle it internally within the Travel and Tourism Board with maybe some extra committee members that volunteer going forward. probably for the next year,
So is
as
that-
we work out how to distribute when we have to do an ad cost thing the next fiscal year.
So is the council, are you in support of having them go ahead and press ahead with this at this point in time?
Good question. Are you asking for the 38 or the 5?
My preference would be 5.
Okay.
I would like to just knock it all out in one shot.
Yeah.
Everything that we think, because then we've got a little more control over how this thing goes from the outset. You know, if it shows up on laser engraved tumblers and all the rest of the stuff.
I mean, I think it's all clearly within the law as far as what
Yeah,
monies
it's
can be
in the law.
spent on, right,
Promotional.
promotional items. So, do we need a motion to,
Well, it's going to be on the agenda for tonight, right?
it's not on the agenda tonight.
Not yet.
Not yet. So, can we do a motion here and now, or do we need to wait until next month? I
No,
mean,
we can do it
I
here.
think we can go ahead and,
Yeah.
if someone wants to put a motion forward
I
for
will
the,
move we allocate $5,000 to the Travel and Tourism Board for the purchase of promotional items.
okay, there's a motion by Councilman Ellis, is there a second?
My second?
And seconded by Councilman Bitter. Any other questions or concerns on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ta-da.
Thank you.
Got the green light, Ms. Watkins, thank you for being patient.
We should have had you go first.
Yeah. Was there anything else from Travel and Tourism, Councilman Bitter?
No.
Okay. Water utility, I was not at that meeting. Was there anything from that meeting, Trevor, to pass on from water utility? I don't remember offhand either, so and since we're
One
running
thing in the
late.
budget, they had asked us to put in that $2 fee, and we took it out
Okay,
based on the reserve, again, per Ryan's conversation. Why would we not replace our debt with new debt? Instead of increasing a reserve that, people are paying for now.
okay.
So,
There was one thing, sorry, we won't go over it in detail, but there's a copy here in front of you. There was a proposal from the water board. They would like to update their water utility board ordinance to add an alternate member. This would be considered next month. If you have any questions or concerns about it, just please let me know. Otherwise, we can potentially add it to our ordinance list for May. Okay, let's move on to regular agenda items.
I watched the YouTube meetings, the board meetings and stuff, and the water, this is it's just a comment. It's very difficult to understand what's going on, and especially in the water board, when 3 people talk at once. It's so conversational that you don't get anything. Boyd will talk, someone else will talk, someone else will talk, and then they all talk together. And it's good when you're there. It's difficult when you're watching it. It's almost impossible, and then you just get the end.
Yeah.
So I don't know which of you are on the water utility board, but maybe you could pass that along.
I'll talk to Steve and see if
Well,
they
just-
can
Yeah,
make it a little
yeah.
less discussion.
It gets just too conversational. The other boards are pretty good about it.
Yeah,
But
they need to keep it structured,
It,
so,
yeah, it gets, you lose.
all right,
I
thank you.
lose the topic anyway.
All right, thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Okay, quickly, tonight's agenda, just running through it, all the usual things in the beginning, call to order, pledge, reconvene the meeting, adopt the agenda. We do have, under announcements, proclamations, a ride for the brand for Stephanie Wardle. We'll do public comments. We've got to adopt the consent agenda, which has all the usual items. We do have a board appointment for Craig Adler to the Natural Resources Board. And then under ordinances, we have the third reading of the short-term rental ordinance, which I did send out that to the council with the town attorney's recommendations. That's an old ordinance. And the land usage one is for the roof overhangs. Okay. And then under the new ordinances, we would have a first reading of, is this the septic ordinance? Thank you. It's just changing a little bit of language about the types of septic systems.
Yep.
And then the budget is the other one.
Short-term rentals.
Yes.
Did the third reading incorporate the recommendations from the attorney?
It has, yes.
Okay.
Hold on.
So, because I read his recommendations and he was very specific in that upon sale of the property,
Yeah.
the grandfathering does not go.
So to be clear, this third reading version, the change in language, other than one little minor admin thing to clarify about how applications are provided, it's just the addition of the grandfathered accessory structures section. And with the input from the town attorney was that it would not convey with the sale of the property, which I know is something that Councilman Toolson, you probably are not in favor of, because I think you felt pretty strongly about that last time. So, but it does include the grandfather provision for those folks that currently have those types of rentals. So
They keep the property.
we'll have to decide how we want to proceed tonight when we get to a vote on that.
Was that just in his own opinion not to add that, or was?
I forwarded the email, I don't remember exactly, he had rationale as to why it wasn't, he didn't think it was a good idea.
That came from Kevin.
Yes.
Yeah, but I didn't understand why. It almost sounded like a personal preference versus legal.
No, I believe
could understand.
his bottom line was that if we allow it to convey, like it's a use that's currently being used by people that have those, but if you allow it to convey, then you're carving out in perpetuity an exception and a special use, special condition for
Two
those
different
discrete
sets
sets
of
of people that don't apply to the rest of the people in the town. And that's always, well, and if I remember how we explained it, not something you really want to try and defend as a town. Like you're making a permanent exception for a entire group of people, not just the current people that get the exception, or something along those lines.
I guess I misunderstood, because I was like reading it as like, if it's grandfather, I mean, that was the whole point of the grandfather clause too, to those certain people that we did already allow a permit.
Right.
That's not for perpetuity.
Yeah, we don't want to injure those people that are currently doing it by putting a new regulation in place. But we also, because that regulation or that use, that grandfathered use is not in compliance with the rest of the ordinance, those people no longer are doing that, we don't want them to be able to sell it and let new people start doing it. I'm not saying it very well.
The only reason I ask is real estate is in my background.
I know.
So I have this structure I'm grandfathered in, I go to sell, the realtor and the buyer, what is going to be the like repercussions if somebody does continue? I mean, one of our short-term rental, maybe it doesn't matter, repercussions if they do it anyway, they get fined $100. and
So I think
continue to
that,
go forward.
I mean, there's only a handful of the ones that we're aware of, I think, that are operating this way.
Yeah,
So
there's not really-
if we got a new permit and we realize, oh, it's sold and someone else owns it now, I think it would be up to the town to let those folks know, or at least, if we discover it because someone reports that they're doing it, they would get a warning. We wouldn't want to cite them, we would just want to let them know. And then I get it, like the realtor and the seller should not be saying, oh yeah, you're gonna make money on this going forward, because you're not gonna be allowed to do it going forward. So there's some personal responsibility for those folks too. But I think the town, knowing the particular properties that would be allowed to be grandfathered, would probably be keeping an eye on it going forward. So that's just my thought on it. Okay.
Could somebody come to us and ask us, like, so if we go ahead with this ordinance, same exact scenario, I buy a house that's been doing this, could I then try to be the better person and say, this is my intention, is to rent this above my garage? I know that I'm not grandfathered in. Is that something that the planning commission, like, that somebody could take that and ask for a variance on that? Or is this just cut and dry? Like,
You're pretty much cut and dry, because the variance section of the ordinance specifically gets into landscape or topography of the land, and that the person did not do something that creates the
It's
need
like
for the variance.
building versus use of existing structures. Okay, the last part of the agenda then, after ordinances, we have resolution and motion, so we'll have the 2 grant applications. So the council's gonna have to think about between now and 7 o'clock tonight. If you want to support those full amounts, there are motions in the packet, so it has the amounts. And if you would rather, at the time we get to those, decide to change the motion, like we only want to fund $8,000 to Friends of the Bridge of Teton. I'm just throwing that out. And I think Jennifer's going to be here tonight.
One of her, she's not, but.
Okay, someone from Friends will be here to talk about that more.
She's got an assistant now.
And then we also have a public hearing for a plat amendment, which sailed through the planning commission. That was the one where the home, this is a home that was built in 2000. It's actually built right smack in between the two lots. So that's why those lots, they're asking now to get it combined. So they're in compliance.
You have a question,
I
comment?
was just going to make a comment on the Bridge of Teton grant. When I was there when she gave her explanation for the increase, and it was to pay for lodging for those
Yes.
ambassadors. That's why they increased it.
Yeah, because I noticed
So
in
it was-
their estimate, they have RV park. They're going to be in the RV park
Yeah,
or somewhere nearby.
that's why,
for the RV park.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That was for the big increase, $4,000, I guess.
And then we'll have mayor and council, and we will adjourn. So it might be a little longer meeting tonight. It's just like today was our longest work session ever, I do believe. So thank you for your patience and for sticking it out. With that, can I get a motion to recess the meeting until 7 p.m.?
I move we recess this meeting until 7 p.m. tonight.
And a second? I'll second. Seconded by Councilman Merrill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we are recessed at 1:04 p.m. Woo.
Holy cow, that was that.
Yeah.